fantasy and ever-changing news and computer terminology. Commodore reviews. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up with the Commodore? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you. Are you keeping up? Yes, the Commodore is keeping up with you.
Hello and welcome to episode 234 of Zapped to the Past. I am your host, Adrian Mills, and I am as always joined by my good friend and far too often poisoned, Graham Raddings. This week we branch out from the magazine Zap 64 and Commodore Force, which we are of course in no way affiliated with, and dive into the twisting and labyrinthine world of fighting fantasy books. Yes, alongside the boom of the computer games industry in the 80s, there was another type of game that was keeping us locked in our bedrooms and shaking our pair of D6s until the cows came home. Growing out of the success of Dungeons & Dragons and other role-playing games, the Fighting Fantasy series of books entertained a generation of kids with their tales of daring-do and fantasy worlds where you were the hero. Starting out as pure fantasy with minotaurs and mazes, they soon encompassed magic, outer space, superheroes, and the darkest pits of horror, where anything could happen. But what happened mostly was you died a horrible death, usually at the hands of Mandrake, although that's a completely different series. But let's not get into that right now. So grab your pencil, roll for skill, stamina, and luck, and join us as we sally forth and slowly turn to page 64 to see what fate awaits us there.
You thought you were going to go full Traeger mode then. Caution, team. Because, of course, the TV shows of that type, well, the TV show of that type, actually, sorry, there's only one.
There's only one.
They do lend themselves, they're kind of borrowing from this world, aren't they? A lot of the tropes are from this kind of, this, I guess, what would you call it? Branching narrative type thing is the modern parlance for this sort of choose your own adventure type thing, isn't it really? Yeah,
branching narrative. I think that's the sort of term that's example. So, I don't think it's another term. Why would you need another one? That works.
Well, it turns out, you see, in a bit of digging around, it turns out they weren't called that in the UK specifically.
Well, they choose your own adventure, weren't they?
Yeah, choose your own adventure is a US term. They weren't called that in the UK. Specifically, they were called Fighting Fantasy Books. The choose your own adventure was kind of a here or there, but they were actually known and branded as choose your own adventure books in the US. So I thought that was quite an interesting thing.
Yeah, I remember some of those choose your own adventure books. They were a bit wishy-washy, I seem to remember, in comparison. I think I saw them a bit later. Didn't really like them very much.
So I did a bit of digging in the archives. I went into where the top men are, and I found what is considered to be one of the very first choose your own adventure books by a woman, two women actually, Doris Webster and Mary Alden Hopkins. This is called Consider the Consequences, Adrian. This is was written and published in 1930. So this is
wow, I didn't know that.
So yeah, this is pretty cool. So it says, and I'm just going to read the blurb of Consider the Consequences, Adrian, because, this is what it says. It says, life is not a continuous line from the cradle to the grave. Rather, it is many short lines, each ending in a choice and branching right and left to other choices, like a bunch of seaweed or a genealogical table. No sooner is one problem solved than you face another growing out of the first. You are to decide the course of action of first Helen, then Jed, then Saunders. At each crisis in their lives, give your first thoughts without pausing to ponder. This game may be played as solitaire, a courting game, or a party stunt. When the players disagree, follow the choice of the majority, but make a note of the dissenting opinion so that you can return later and find out what happens to Helen, or Jed, or Saunders. You remember them. When other advice is followed. So that's the launch point of Consider the Consequences. And there's 3 sections in this old book. Section 1 is Helen. Section 2 is Jed. Section 3 is Saunders. Now, I just found that quite fascinating. And then if you go to the next bit, there's literally the branches of Helen's choices on the next page. This is on the Internet Archive, so we'll share the link in the show notes. And then you can begin. Now, I'm not going to go reading into Helen's section. But the very first sentence is, should a girl marry against the advice of her parents? And so it goes on, da-da-da-da-da. And then at the end of that particular part, at the end of that particular sort of series of paragraphs, it says, Helen now faced a momentous decision. Should she defy her family and marry Jed, following the dictates of her heart? or should she be as prudent as her parents would like her to be and refuse a marriage which presented difficulties as well as romance from the beginning? The reader is to make the choice for Helen. If the first course is chosen, turn to paragraphs H1. If the second course, turn to H2. Now, if that isn't the precursor to Choose Your Own Adventure,
isn't it? Yeah.
that really is. Yeah, 1930 that began. Now, I didn't actually dive into what happens with Helen or Jed or Saunders. But I was tempted to do that to just see where it went, because it also felt a little bit like this kind of life journey version. Isn't that a little bit alter ego-y as well, to some extent?
I was thinking alter ego, as another early example of that kind of scenarios with choices.
Isn't it fascinating? So branching novel, that was called. It wasn't Choose Your Own Adventure back then. They called them a branching novel. Branching novel, but choose your own. I suppose this is more, less choose your own adventure more than choose the path of three different people. But interesting, isn't it? I think a little bit that. So it began a lot earlier than as I was doing the research for this particular episode and just digging into the stuff, and just trying to get out of the Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson. I guess the monopoly that they have, which is fair enough. Just especially in the UK, just to see what was else and where it began, and that's what I discovered. So they consider the consequences. 1930. Go and read it, but consider the consequence of doing so, Adrian, because it could change your life, or Jed's, or Saunders. Yeah, good old Saunders.
Saunders. What's happened to him? Hopefully, he becomes a colonel.
He sold a lot of chicken. He sold a whole lot of chicken.
He did.
So I've also got a surprise for you, Adrian, in this particular episode of the podcast, because I've constructed a Choose Your Own Adventure game just for you.
Oh, cool.
And
that's good.
We're going to play this live. You will be the chooser of the choices. I will read out the thing to you. This is a book I'd like to call Blood of the Ninja Zombies Who Are Lost in the Forest of Egg, which is the title of that. It's got an introduction. We'll come to that in a little bit, because obviously we can space out the choices you make and see where it leads. Now, I have to be full disclosure. I didn't wholly write all of this. I had some AI help, but the reason I chose that is because I wanted it to just write crazy. Because if there's one thing that we know about generative AI, it can do crazy pretty good. So I've left it to left the consequences and the law, and I gave it the story title and the basics. The rest of it is all down to Claude. But I thought it'd be interesting to see what it came up with. Brief preview of it. It gets a little bit wild, let me tell you, but we'll leave that for later. So we will be playing through a round of Blood of the Ninja Zombies Who Are Lost in the Forest of Egg to see where you get to, Adrian. Maybe you could beat the game. We don't know. But I thought I'd do that because I thought.
Is it possible to beat it? Do I need to roll stats and stuff, or is the combat and things?
There is combat, there is monsters, everything. But what I'll do is there's obviously I can press a button. It's HTML, so I can press a button, and then I'll read out the choices to you, and you have to make the choice. I thought that'd be the easiest way of doing it. And then when it's a battle, obviously there is dice rolls as such. They are, but you might die, and if you do, we go back to the beginning and we try a different route. Anyway, that's for a little bit later. But I thought I'd do that because you know what, Choose Your Own Adventure books. It's been an exciting few weeks reading through some of these old books. As a question for you, did you revisit your old bookshelves? Where did you find some old books of yours? Or do you have them all? I'm curious to know a bit more about that.
I keep most of them at work for kind of the useful in classes and the useful in lessons, especially when I'm doing narrative stuff.
You keep some of them in room A, some of them in room B, and then somebody's just going to borrow one. You have to say, well, which go down the corridor, choose corridor A, corridor B. One.
I mean, before we get into this, I think, do we not need to do a bit of a definition of what these are?
Well, yes, I suppose we do. So there's a bit of history outside of the prehistory. Yes, we do.
So just sort of essentially, I mean, we went through it in that sort of consequences, but whatever it was called, consider the consequences. But essentially, if you never come across a Fighting Fantasy book before or a Choose Your Own Adventure book, I'm guessing most of you have who probably listened to this, but in case you haven't, you might not have done. They're books which are not written sequentially. So they're books written in a series of paragraphs, usually numbered, or in the case of that consequence, H1, H2. So I guess that's Helen 1, Helen 2. And you start at number 1, or you start at the beginning, and you read that paragraph. there's usually a bit of preamble beforehand to set the scene and set the sort of story up. And then once you've read that, you read paragraph 1. Usually at the end of paragraph 1, there's usually a couple of choices. Each one will send you to a different paragraph number, and then you proceed from there. So what you will do is you won't read like normal books. You'll read, page 1 to page 300, and you'll read it sequentially, and you'll finish the book. Here, you won't read all the paragraphs because you won't go through all the sections. So multiple playthroughs, multiple attempts at it, and you'll usually have a quest, and usually at first time you'll fail. And your quest was to get to the end, basically, and whatever the quest you were given in that preamble was how you managed to sort of make your way through it. And that's what they are. So that's what they essentially were. They kind of, we'll get into where they came from, but just so you have an understanding of what they were, I think that kind of...
That's the right. You have a character sheet as such, don't you? You have like a sheet with stats, and and those stats are attributed points in whatever scoring systems works for that particular book, and think of it like health, variations of that. And if you encounter something and it can either, it stabs you in the, the shoulder with its, thing longerer, you lose 2 health points, or you gain 2 fear points, or whatever it might be. There's usually a scoring system which can result in the demise of your character via the stats. A bit of a D&D throwback, I think, really, maybe.
Yeah, it's a very simplified version of the stats from Dungeons and Dragons and things like that, where it was intelligence, health, intelligence, strength, constitution, all that sort of stuff. In the classic Fighting Fantasy books, you had 3, which was skill, strength, and luck. That's where it started. So that's what they are, and that's what we're just so you have a grounding of sort of, if we're using terms like branching and things like that, you kind of know what we're talking about, and I'm sure you do anyway. But we might have some people who don't. It might be
exactly, and if you do, turn to page 63. If you don't, turn to page 64.
Yeah, to listen to this again. Rewind it. You've got the choices all yours. Yeah. So, I think the interesting thing here is you go first, because I think you were different, obviously very different to how I got into it. Where's your first book? What was your start with the Fighting Fantasy
I've been trying to figure that out, right? Because I've been trying to think, did I start with because I was into that kind of Dungeons and Dragons. I can't say it. Dungeons and Dragons. I was into Dungeons and Dragons and all of that. I've still got my original Dungeons and Dragons rule book. So I was into that world quite early on, and we're going back to must be early 80s, at some point in there, I've encountered Dungeons and Dragons. Nobody would ever play it with me, though. None of my stupid family. So I was kind of like, a bit of a solo journey person, a couple of mates maybe. But I'm thinking that for me, I came into the Steve Jackson, Ian Livingstone type fighting fantasy books after the Ninja series, I think. And that's because I had a mate who was well into ninjas. Then. Yeah, so a bit later, because I had a mate who was well into ninjas, and that's where I think I encountered the Way of the Tiger books. And then that's sort of led me to, what others are out there. But I also have this niggling feeling that I had someone had got me a couple, a relative had got me a couple of these books for Christmas at some point as a youth. And I think I've just kind of gone, oh, they're cool. Put them on the shelf like you do when you're an ungrateful twat. So I think I did have some. I just don't think I'd given them much attention. I think I've sort of gone a quick flip through and gone, and then not really revisited them till Assassin and the Way of the Tiger books, when everyone got a bit obsessed with ninjas. So that's where I kind of encountered them. Subsequently, obviously, I then got more into, I don't know, I've been trying to figure out exactly, because I don't have any of these books anymore, other than I found my original copy of Assassin. The others, I'd bought a couple from Amazon, super cheap to buy now, even new. It's crazy, really. So I bought a couple, and I'd bought the 30-year commemorative Sir Ian Livingstone book that he sort of brought out in 2012, I think it was. So I'd bought that one then as a sort of, as a little honorarium, because I quite liked them. I'd forgotten actually how much I disliked the Livingstone versions of these, because I found them a bit hard. But that's kind of my potted history. So I wish I kept my books like you, other than I've got that one. And I think I've got a copy of Usurper somewhere. So I was obviously more into the ninja side of these books, which came about 1985, I think. So I wasn't, so your history will probably predate mine. Although I have a feeling I had one of the first ones. Was it Warlock on Fight Up Mountain? I think I've definitely had one of the early ones, but I don't have that copy anymore, sadly. But that's kind of where I got into them. And then I played through the more of the ninja ones. and sort of got into the other ones. But I'm thinking that some of because I was looking through all the different, there's loads of them, obviously. I was looking through some of the lists, and some of the ones I remembered weren't even on like the top lists. They must have been like the more obscure ones. But still, some of the couple of them there, I think City of Thieves was one I seem to remember having at some point. But that's kind of my potted history of it. So I'm afraid I was late entry Ninjas was my entry into it. What about you?
So mine, it was a summer. I remember it was a summer holiday, and I remember my friend. So this would have been either, I'm going to say it was probably summer 83, probably round about there, maybe 84. We were at middle school, and I had a friend who I never usually hung around with. He was part of the gang of us, but I never kind of hung out with on my own. It was kind of one of those sort of people. He's part, Frodo, yeah. He's part of the gang. Part of the club sort of thing, but some people you will hang out with individually, and then you become part of a bigger gang sort of thing, and then you won't hang out with them. But for some reason, I think he just asked me one day. He was like, he said, I've got this really cool book. Do you want to come around to my house and have a look at it? Now, if anyone says to me, I've got a really cool book, I'm there. I'm like, yeah, okay, what's cool about this book? Because at this point, I didn't know anything about this. And he showed me Warlock of High Top Mountain. So this was the very first one. Nothing else was out. So Warlock of High Top Mountain, here it is. And we sat and we played it. It was I remember it was a very sunny afternoon in his house, and we played it as we both rolled a character, and we took it in turns to make separate choices. So we kind of played it separately. So he'd read a chapter, I read, and then he'd pass it to me, I'd do mine, and he'd go off one way, he'd go off the other, and we'd keep a note of what paragraph we were at, and we played it that way. Now, I think he read the wrong thing, because I think he somehow managed to skip the maze, which is impossible in Warlock of High Top Mountain. It's a pain in the ass. And he managed to sort of get to the end. But that was my first memory of it. My next memory, I remember I got the second book. Now, I'd obviously seen Citadel of Chaos, and it's terrible, terrible cover. It's the worst cover ever of the Fighting Fantasy books. That the original cover for Citadel of Chaos is just dreadful, which is a shame because all the rest are brilliant mostly. And I remember I've got a vivid image, I think I had a look. Citadel of Chaos came out in March 83. So I have a vivid image. Now, I think I might have got it later than that. Maybe saw it because one Sunday night, I had it. I think I pestered my mum to buy me it. And I have a very vivid image of sitting down like about 7 o'clock on a Sunday night and just nestling down in the living room and playing that game, Paradise and stuff like that, and just reading it aloud to myself. And I have these, it's like one of those moments I know I did it and I loved it.
Vivid memory,
yeah. And from then on, I remember getting Forest of Doom, the third one. I because I didn't know it was coming out. I think we were in town with my mum and I saw it, and I pestered her and she bought me it, so it was very nice. But I think she just liked the fact I was reading a lot and stuff like that. She encouraged me. That was the thing. So, but there was also games, and it was like a combo too. So you get into, it was a win-win. And so that's where I got into them, and that was me done with. And then I had another good friend. He got really, really into them as well. And between the pair of us, we just got every single new one. Read the magazine, got Warlock the magazine, and then got into the ninja stuff. There was there's the other weird stuff, the 2-player stuff, the Joe Dever things.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
The White Warlord and Black Baron and the Scarlet Sorcerer and Emerald Enchanter, I think they were. So we got them. Cool. There was loads, and we just those 2-player ones were pretty good because you both had a book each, and you're running around a maze trying to shoot each other, and they were quite cool. And then the other stuff came out, there was extra stuff came along the line. So there was the puzzle books. I don't know if you ever saw any of the puzzle books. There was 2 of them: the Task of Tantalon and the Citadel, and the Casket of Souls. These great, amazing sort of works about these books, and each one were telling this story, and you had to sort of solve this puzzle within them, and then you could send off and see if you won a prize. Or basically like that.
That's cool.
I never solved it. It was way beyond me. I didn't have Task of Tantalon, but I had Casket of Souls. It was just incredible. Illustrated by Ian McCaig, if I remember rightly. We'll talk about later. I got the Titan, the Fighting Fantasy sort of Bible
cover
kind of thing, and that's Christos Achilleos, that cover. This is the original print.
Probably worth a few quid.
So I bought that when it first came out. I used to have Out of the Pit as well, which is the Monster Compendium. The Fighting Fantasy. I was well into this. It was just.
I was going to say you were well into this world, then, right?
Yeah, I was really, really, very much into this because it was like I loved fantasy books. Fantasy had a kind of late 70s through the 80s. Fantasy books had a big sort of upswell sort of thing because on the back of Tolkien was obviously earlier than that, but you had Moorcock, Ursula Le Guin, Terry Brooks, David Eddings, David Gemmell, Weiss and Hickman, the Dragonlance stuff. So it was a big upswell in fantasy stuff. So I was reading all that, reading all these, playing games. It was just a great time. It was all this brilliant sort of stuff just coming together, and these were just straight up my alley. Mixing fantasy and game. What would I not like? So yeah, and then we wrote one. Me and my friend, we wrote a full 400 paragraph one and sent it off to Puffin.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Where did that go then? Is that still around?
No, I don't. I no longer have that one. I have another folder. I have another folder with another one in. I know. I've got a folder at work though with another one that we started still in,
cool.
which was set in the real world. So I've still got that. But I don't know if I have the other one. I'd have to check in that folder. There's a lot of stuff in that folder. But we sent it to Puffin, but it got rejected, unfortunately. But there you go. It was based on the Dark Elf story it was after I got Titan, because there's a story about the Dark Elves in there, and we based it on that. So maybe they didn't like the fact that we based it in their world, sort of thing. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I was very much into. But that was like through the mid to late 80s, sort of 83, 84, probably up to about 88, 89. And by about 90, I started you start to tune out of them a little bit, don't you? You get 17, 18, and you kind of move on. But that was yeah. And then I think we just liked joking about Mandrake.
Well, it's funny, right? So I knew I didn't have the big collection. I mean, that sounds like you ended up with quite the collection of those books, which I think they were like things you collected, weren't they? Because they kind of had a look.
I don't have them all still.
But they had a look. The spines on a shelf would have a look, and they were numbered, I think, weren't they? I seem to recall they were originally were they numbered?
Yeah, well, originally no, because that's the Warlock of High Top Mountain, because it doesn't have any number.
All right, but did they end up having? I remember them having a green kind of spine and having like colours.
Yeah, they did. Went after a few of them. I can't remember which first one I've got. So, City of Thieves is the first one with 5.
A friend of mine, who I was friends with at school, who was the one that got me into the ninja books, also collected all of these fighting fantasy books. Now, when I say collected, I mean collected. So they ended up with, and probably still got, although I obviously haven't spoken to them in many, many, many years. But they had them all on their shelf. I mean, all of them. They kind of made a point of getting them all the new ones. They kept them in pristine condition. They wouldn't lend any of these books to anyone to even hold or read, because they, you'd break the, you might have changed the spine. They were very particular about it, almost one might say in modern parlance, probably a little bit OCD about that kind of thing. Fair enough. But they had a big collection of them. And that was where I think I saw more of the fighting fantasy books. I wasn't into them, but not I wasn't into them. I wasn't into buying them. I didn't have the money really to buy them or the inclination. I was kind of into other stuff. But that's where I'd sort of seen a lot of them. And the conversation with that particular person often revolved around them. They were in my tutor group and stuff at school. So I was more of a friend later I knew them pretty well, but I was at that point at school kind of a friend by association. I wasn't in a lot of their classes, but we were in the same tutor group. So it meant that we, I think, did we meet every morning for tutor? I can't remember now, but
yeah. You had a tutorial.
So then and the conversation would be, they owned a Spectrum, I had a C64, and they also were into this world. So that's kind of where it was. And outside of video games, these were and board games to an extent, these are the games that we were playing. And I'd made my family, I've got, because you've got an older brother, haven't you? So, and I imagine, but your brother is older, significantly older in years, right? Like my brother is. My brother's 9 years older than me. So by the time I'd come to be wanting to do this kind of stuff, I didn't have a brother that was 2 years older than me that would have played it probably. He was 9 years older than me and in the Navy at that point, so he was long gone. So, and my sisters, not going to do fighting fantasy at this point. They're not into that stuff. They're into Christa Berg and other things I don't even want to think about. So I was so these choose your own adventure books where you could do an adventure on your own kind of appealed to me a little bit. But I think I was also at this point getting into the C64, and I just don't think you managed to exist in both spaces. I think the video games just took over my idea. But I never got into the video game versions of these, like adventure games either. Not massively. I started more of a curiosity for me. I think I dipped my finger into them. Sounds awful, but I tread the waters a little bit with some of them, but I never got into them. I ended up, I think, because some of the early adventure games that I played on the C64 were probably things like Dracula, and because they attracted me because of all the blood and guts and stuff like that. And of course, they were the worst adventure games to actually cut your teeth on, right? Because they were stupidly hard and involved periods where you just did nothing. So
waited,
yeah. So I think I got a bit frustrated with that world. Had I got invested in a different way, and perhaps I would have got more into that. But I suppose we can come to the video game versions of them. Did you do that? Yeah. Did you get into the video game versions of adventures as well, or was it just books for you?
No, the reason I didn't. So I think, the obvious reason for that, basically, and I think it's why you would then later get into, you liked adventures, you liked puzzles, you would then go into like Maniac Mansion and Zack McCracken. And the reason for that, and the reason why, the problem I always had with, I think, text adventures, is I always felt I was fighting the parser, fighting what words were acceptable, how to do things. So it was always a case of like, get lantern, you cannot do that. All right, take lantern, you take the lantern. Oh, it's the same word. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, put lantern on table. I don't know what you mean. Put take lantern table.
Drop lantern.
Okay, drop lantern. You've dropped the lantern on the table. Oh, this is stupid. And it really annoyed me. And I never had a disk drive to play some of the more clever ones, like the Zorks, the Infocom stuff, which are obviously the top. They were obviously the gold standard of them. And so when these came along, it's like playing in modern times, it's like playing a Twine game. Because Twine games it's just it's like choose your own adventure. It's just a series of choices. You don't really type something. You're not fighting the thing to trying to think of the right combination of words or anything like that. You just got a series of choices and you make them, and it's that it streamlined that situation. And you've got here sort of thing that I think this sort of grew out of. Obviously it came out of Dungeons and Dragons, which came at 1974, which obviously was built on the war games from the 1960s. But as you've not rightly noted here, needed friends, and I think that's quite an important sort of catalyst for these to become quite so popular. The singular books, you were the hero, and they were great. They're great sort of like a lot of great video games, power fantasy sort of thing. You're the great hero striding forth with your sword, taking down monsters and solving and doing it all. You're the one. You're the chosen. And there you go. But Dungeons and Dragons needed a party, you needed friends, you needed people, you needed time. I remember my brother buying the Dungeons and Dragons instruction rule book, coming home one night and went, here you go, read this and learn how to play it. Like, my brother's 12 years older than me. He's in his 20s at that point. I think I was 12 or 13.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to learn the rules, mate. Learn the rules. There's a lot of rules to learn.
And then what I did, I read the 64-page manual, the booklet, read it all, went, right, okay, I've got the hang of this. Yeah, I'll create a quick story. He didn't want to play. Oh, well, that was useless,
they never do. They never do.
And that's why these books were a godsend, because I don't need you anymore. And they were simple, choices. Just give me choices.
Absolutely.
Clear.
Well, interesting you bring up the Dungeons and Dragons thing, because in the in the rule book that I've got, which is, I've actually got an unusual form factor of the rule book. So obviously the people that know Dungeons and Dragons of old will know that when you bought it, you actually got quite a big A4 box, like a box, and it was full of paper, character sheets, and it was a sort of more of a magazine size. But they did produce a smaller book version, which is the one I've got now. It's quite unusual, they're quite rare apparently. Make of that what you will.
The red one.
It's not the red one. So
second edition.
In fact, I've still got it here. 1 second. So I'm showing Adrian now. So this is the
it's that one. Yeah, is that second edition? I think it is. Is it second edition?
It's basic. It says basic rules. It's actually more or less falling to bits. This Gary Gygax. I'm just trying to open it to see which edition. So this is the third edition.
Oh, third. Because we had the purple one with the
which is the
one,
original.
I think before that, or the original.
Now, the reason I mention all of this is because in this particular version, there is in the learning to play bit at the beginning of the game, there is a solo game you can play. So it actually has a one-player version, which you can create the character, and it sort of takes you on a little mini, your first adventure. So chapter 3 in this book is the solo adventure. It says, in the following one-player adventure, you will explore a dungeon looking for monsters and treasures. Part 1 is a shopping trip. Part 2, you will learn more about battles. And part 3, you will visit the dungeon. So there is a little mini solo adventure. So obviously this probably came out, what's the publishing date on this one? If it's version 3, it's going to be a little bit later than the original 70s ones. It's this one. So the original is 1974, but it just says this one looks like you've got 1974, 77, 78, 81, 83, and 86. I'm guessing this is 86, which would be about the time I got this. So I'm guessing that they'd already had so some of the there must have been perhaps the conversations around solo play. Obviously, someone had gone to Gary Gygax and gone, it's a bit boring if you're on your own. He's gone, all right, well, throw a bloody 3 chapters in the beginning of the 3rd edition, then you idiot. Now, roll a D20, otherwise you're trapped in it forever.
Because Warlock of Fight Up Mountain was 82, so they were very
that's
popular,
what I mean.
as we'll find out.
That's what I mean. So I think that's why they've done that, which is quite interesting, isn't it? But yeah, you're right. 1974, early on for Dungeons and Dragons, of course, and then well, there we go. That's what I think clearly what introduced dice and introduced character sheets, and that's obviously the really the logical step for going from consider the consequences to the dungeon. According to the histrionics, by the way, the first book that involved branching paragraphs plus dice and statistics was something called Buffalo Castle, 1976.
Never heard of it.
think they were a lot. These were American, weren't they? They weren't because we know what we're like in Britain.
I think
like,
so.
You've not got time to play these ridiculous, silly games. He throws a 20-sided dice. 6 sides is all you need. And you damn with them. Damn their impudence.
Absolutely. Get 2 of those in Monopoly, and that's all we have in this house.
That's all
Where the
you'll
dice
ever
gone?
need.
We want to play Monopoly. Timmy's played his Choose Your Own Adventure books again. Fighting
That's
Fantasy Father.
So I think you're right. But so it was clearly a way of getting people to play the Dungeons and Dragons. It is Dungeons and Dragons on your own, I suppose, in a little way, isn't it? In its own way, but with unique stories, I suppose, a little bit, really.
Yeah. And the thing was as well is that you didn't have to waste time in setting up, just setting up scenarios, coming up with people, finding people, getting everyone down. You didn't have to put up with people doing stupid stuff. Like, look, just explore the dungeon, will you? Stop trying to headbutt a wall. You're just gonna, people being silly. And when you're playing games, and I've had that when I've tried to DM and led to really ridiculous situations. I guess it's part of the fun, but it's also part of the annoyance when you're trying to DM and you just move on.
And did you find, just as a little aside, when you played Dungeons and Dragons, there's a dividing line between the people that get it and the people that don't. The people that get Dungeons and Dragons are the people that become the character and act like the character and talk like the character, and they role play. For the people that don't get it, they don't role play. They feel, I think that maybe there's a barrier there. They don't let go, so they kind of be themselves, but sort of, I guess, it's almost like wearing a costume as opposed to being the character. And I always found that really difficult because you want to play it as a proper role player. I think I only ever had a handful of games where I played it as a proper role play with people that really knew what they were doing with the rules. And it was really was great fun to do Dungeons and Dragons back then like that. So get to do it very often.
I mean, obviously the strength of Dungeons and Dragons over these is the fact of it was pretty easy to create your own adventures.
Yeah,
you just needed some
many rules.
Yeah, you just needed some. No, I mean Dungeons and Dragons. So to create a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, just like just needed some graph paper and some stuff, and then put it in, and then get the people around, and off you go. Yeah, it's quite hard work you can't write your own Choose Your Own Adventure book because you know how to do it.
No, so, exactly that. Yeah, and also the basics of the basics of creating your own adventure. Even that solo adventure there explains it. Go shopping, go to the tavern, and then go to the dungeon. The basic version of any solo adventure, right?
Yeah. The start of any start of Morrowind or something. I mean, that's how it started. It came out Dungeons and Dragons. What's this you've got ahead? The Edward Packard invented it. What's this? Telling bedtime stories. What's this all about?
Well, so there's 2 branches to this story, this Choose Your Own Adventure story. There's the American side of it. Edward Packard invented bedtime stories where he told his daughters, and then he created these stories. Sugarcane Island was one that he'd written. He'd written all these for his daughters, and he told them bedtime stories, and he tried to get them published. Nobody was interested. Then finally, someone got interested.
Branching stories,
yeah, exactly, yeah. So these were the original Choose Your Own Adventures, actually branded as Choose Your Own Adventures, and later launched. Then you got the Cave of Time with a whole bunch of titles, and eventually, so in the US, Choose Your Own Adventure became a thing based on principally a couple of people's creating bedtime stories for their daughters that had obviously got them reading to them and going, what do you choose to do? That kind of thing. So that's how it came about. In Britain, Ian Livingstone, Steve Jackson, and I forget his name, Ian Peake, I think, is it? Mr. Peake to you and me. Tim Peake, maybe.
Okay.
Anyway, they founded Games Workshop in 1975, and that was principally to resell Dungeons and Dragons, which they made a lot of money at. Then, at a games day, they met a Penguin editor and pitched an RPG you could play alone in a book. That book.
It's a weird thing to be an editor, isn't it? A penguin.
Yeah, well, you know what? They're very talented, these penguins. It turns out. So they met an editing penguin. He just act his way through the meeting, knowing little shit.
Just ate a lot of fish.
But you know what? He did have some good things to say, albeit in his own little beaky way. So anyway, that's a very interesting but unusual sideline. Anyway, so then The Warlock of Firetop Mountain was published in 1982 by Puffin. Puffin had a good reputation for producing those kids' books, essentially, at that time. And they were classics and think at that point, classics and a few other lines. But they added skill, stamina, and luck. They'd borrowed, obviously, from Dungeons and Dragons, and 2 dice to the US format of Choose Your Own Adventure. So you could actually lose. Because in the American versions, remember, you can't actually lose. It's just it's a bit like that. Consider the consequences. Jan isn't going to die in that. Well, hope.
No,
because that would be a particularly grim consequence, wouldn't it? Put your hand in a blender. Oh, Jan, shouldn't have done that, should you? Turns out it really hurts. But by March 1983, they held the top 3 slots in the Sunday Times bestseller list with the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. 20 million copies sold overall, which is a lot at that time.
That's crazy. That is crazy that they had the top 3 books in the Sunday Times bestseller list.
That's right. And remember that they were not branded at any point as Choose Your Own Adventure. That was the American ones, but these were called Fighting Fantasy. So the Warlock of Firetop Mountain was the very first fighting fantasy book. Now, there's tons of interviews with Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson and books and stuff and websites, and there's an entire wing of the internet devoted to all this stuff. So you can go and research that all you like and deep dive all of that. I'd recommend reading some of the interviews with Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson. There's one in particular, which is on the 30-year anniversary, which is really, really good because there's a lot of insight. We've got some bits and bobs out of that even later on in this podcast. But that's the British bit, but that's that's where it began, 1980, well, 82, 83, I guess, really. But that was, the beginning. And then there was a bit of a cascade, wasn't there? Was a bit of a, run at it all. And there you go. So you were in the, right at the beginning of that cusp. If you were getting your first books then you were probably that person that you spoke to, that mysterious person who was otherwise, did he just appear in a puff of smoke, by the way, this person, with a cloak or something?
No, he was a mate. He was a mate. He was a friend. Just not someone, like I said, not someone I generally hung around with individually. Just part of the group.
A cool person. But that person had obviously, had somebody of influence got them that book. And that's great.
Massively,
that's how things used to spread, didn't they? People would talk about things. That wouldn't happen now, would it?
No. John Peake, by the way, is his name.
John Peake. I knew it was a peak, one of the peaks.
John Peake.
Rather than Widow's Peak or Dante. Anyway, there you go. But there you go. The British line, and that's the one obviously where we're going to really be talking about mainly because I mean you know a lot more about this than I do by process of the books you've read and the experience you've had. So did you come across the American ones at any point? Yes,
I did see some of them, and like I said, I never took to them because I think I found one in a library. I went, oh, this looks great. I read these. What are these? It's a choosing, but there was no dice, as it's written here, no dice, pure branching. That was like not part of the allure, not part, and they weren't fantasy. I don't think. I think they were just real world stuff. So it was like I seem to remember them being something like what were the Hitchcock stories? And there's like the famous 5, the Hardy Boys. I seem to remember them being
Nancy
like more
Drew
like that.
Right.
Yeah, which makes sense if
like
if they're bedtime stories for his daughters, they're not going to be blood curdling tales of like fighting, blood beast terrors and what have you, or whatever. And what's that monster in Deathtrap Dungeon? I forgot its name now. Pit fiends and stuff like that, and hacking people up and stuff like that, and being skewered by Mandrake and all that kind of stuff. They're not the same. They weren't, and so I just didn't take to them. And I never sort of went back to them. And it sounds a lot of them, 184 of them, right? More than I ever thought there was. But
Absolutely.
No, I was more into the fighting fantasy with me. I got the sorcery series as well. The 4 books of them. You got the Shamatanti Hills. Got it, Kare, City Port of Traps, 7 Serpents in the City of the Crown of Kings, the 4th one. They were really good. That was a great series from Steve Jackson. And I have to say, I'll just say it right here, sort of thing. I always preferred Jackson's books. Always.
Yeah, I think a lot of people,
because he did something different with each one.
Who said that? Yeah.
Because in Citadel of Chaos he introduced magic. Second book he brought magic in. Then he did the 4th book, Starship Traveller, which is basically Star Trek. So he made them just the first sci-fi one. Then he did House of Hell, the first horror one, and then he did obviously the sorcery books, which with this grand arcing 4-book quest, which you carried the character from one book to the next, like like proto sort of video games that do it where you carry a character. And then he did. I think his next one was. Did he do? I'm not sure if he did one of the superhero ones. He might have done a superhero one. But the next one I remember is Creature of Havoc. And Creature of Havoc, where you're basically the monster.
Okay. Cool.
So you start with the monster. You can't talk. You can't think. The first thing you do is eat a dwarf.
Right. Well, we've all been there.
Well, yeah, we have. So yeah, I always found his more interesting because it always did something different. Livingstone's were always a bit hard, but they were very fantasy formulaic.
Yeah, you could tell by the maps at the beginning they were very Tolkien-y.
Yeah,
is that Tolkien like?
Yeah. So I did Appointment with Fear, Steve Jackson, which was his superhero one.
Yeah. So
sorry,
there was a boom, obviously. And just to give you an idea of that boom, so a book, Sorcery, 1983 to 85, the big artistic peak. Joe Lever's Lone Wolf.
Definitely.
In 1984, did 100,000 copies in its first month. People were digging this stuff. People were really digging
massively.
these books. And there was that, you said, continuity between the books then. So, they started to have series. The Way of the Tiger book started to come along, where you had continuous characters, which was obviously a legacy of, again, Dungeons and Dragons, where you had a character that you aim to keep alive with experience points, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you've got the Grail quests, Way of the Tiger, Endless Quest, Find Your Fate. And then there was a big panic, a moral panic happened, which did nothing really apart from help sales of all the books. So this was partially because of the book covers, which I don't know whether they were that controversial, but maybe they were to the people that were, thinking it like that. So Dungeons & Dragons and a few others became the subject of a bit of a moral panic. The Evangelical Alliance issued a warning that the books could lead players to interact with the devil, while parents reported that after reading, their children developed supernatural powers, including one mother who reported that her child started to fly. Okay. Yeah. Only in a rerun. When asked about the controversy, Steve Jackson replied that they were very grateful for it as it helped their sales figures. And game historian Stu Hovarth commented the moral panic didn't dent sales. Firetop Mountain alone was reprinted 5 times in 1982, 10 times in 1983, and 7 more in 1984, eventually selling well over 2 million copies and inspiring a popular board game to boot. Nothing like the prospect of being able to fly to lure in the young ones, it seems. That's what, So there you go.
That's what I think. Crazy that, isn't it? Crazy, these moral panics and the, heavy metal, rock and roll, Dungeons and Dragons, Fighting Fantasy, video nasties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just anything they can get sort of aggravated about. It's like, it's just ridiculous. It always
the case.
Silly.
I mean, moral panic. There was a lot of that going on at that time. I think everyone, as you rightly said, everyone was having a bit of a panic about something. Video nasties was around at the time in 84, 83, 84, 85, wasn't it? Yeah. We just had a little bit of there was a bit of backlash against creativity almost, wasn't it? Were they really horrific, the covers or something? I don't remember them being.
No, not really. Just fantasy monsters or sci-fi and stuff. Nothing particularly bad about it.
It surprised me that some of those early Zapped covers didn't get canned then, if that was the case, because they were pretty graphic, some of those early ones, weren't they? But
yeah, I think they got a bit of flack for the Theatre Europe one, I seem to remember, didn't they?
Yeah, well, that was pretty
melted
grim.
face.
Pretty grim. But then again, I think in TV at the time, we've talked about it many times over, but you had things like Threads and stuff like that. Everything was a bit grim in the early 80s. TV was grim.
It was.
And the mood of the country was grim. There was strikes and there was all sorts of we had all sorts of horrific stuff going on. So having a moral panic in the middle of that seems a bit stupid, really, compared to that you look to your right, you see moral panic because someone's having a bad day with the covers of a book. Look to your left and you're seeing a bunch of miners getting beaten on a field, and you're like, okay, I think the world's a bit topsy turvy at the minute. But anyway, then after the boom and the moral panic, which drew all the there was a bit of a crash. So there was 21 new series of books launched in 1985. Now, I would say this wasn't a crash. This was an explosion of too much. So instead of, it's one of those things where people started to realize there was money to be made in their hills. And so loads of these, so there was less crash, more flood. 21 new series launched in 1985 to 86, 19 of which folded in 1987 to 88. So that's, Jackson stopped at book 24 in 1986. The Livingstone stopped at 36 in 1988. Video games didn't kill it either, since they were both kind of boomed together. But they say that the 1991 to 93 recession, Magic the Gathering in 1993, and publishers pricing them as throwaways contributed to the doom at that time. Of course, later there came a revival, but there was a doom at that time.
Well, I also think as well, it's what I said earlier. It's when you've got to sort of figure in your audience. So when these came out, when you got an audience, I was 10 when these first started appearing. I think I read the first one. I was 11. I was obviously in middle school. I know I was in middle school, so I was obviously something like 11. And I was into them and into computer games and into that sort of that period of like 82, really heavily into the 82 to 88. Because and then you get to 16, and I imagine most of the sort of readers of this started to grow out of them a little bit. They got into it. You get into other things at 16, don't you? You get into maybe playing an instrument. You're going out. You're starting going down the pub. You're meeting girls, things like that, or boys, or whatever. You're getting into other stuff. These kind of things fall by the wayside. So I think that they never really sort of progressed into. I don't think they really picked up the following lot of younger people who were probably getting more into different things. So these kind of like anything, they had a period, they had a series, they had a time, and their time was like 82 to 90 or something like that. And I think that was about right for them. You know, they were about right.
Yeah.
And I think the revival you've got here, Wizard Books picked them up in 2002. You know, Scholastic in 2007. These kind of things came along a bit later. I think that's primarily us lot going, oh, do you remember them?
Yeah, a bit of retro, you know, spectacle kind of looking back.
And, they sell them back to us because that's what they do. Yeah. You know, we see that in the video game market sort of thing with the new Commodores back and everything like this. There's a tendency for, we go through this period where, you know, your late teens into your early 30s, and then you get a bit nostalgic for your kid stuff when you were a kid. And then you have a bit more extra money, maybe, you know, you work and you see, oh, they've re-released that, I'll buy that. And you have this bit of a sort of retro thing. And I think that's what's happened. That's why these things come back after a break, because they need us, because we're the audience. I don't know if they reach out to much of a new audience, because when I show them to students and stuff, as I do, as early examples of branching narratives, they ain't got a clue.
Unknown to them. I mean, just as a note, by the way, there were in an ironic twist, there were two Steve Jacksons. There was the UK Steve Jackson, and there was the British Steve Jackson, who was British, and then there was an American Steve Jackson. What's the
chances of two Steve Jacksons writing these books? I mean, Steve Jackson's not that common a name, was it?
No, I mean, were they just, you know, were they like the part of the same, you know, were they the same person just in different, you know, dimensions? You know, we talked about the Faldos. Are these the, you know, the Jacksons?
The Jacksons.
Yeah, because Action was his other brother, of course.
The triplicate, the triple. Steve and Action. Oh, Steve, Action, Steve. There'd be SAS.
There you go. That's how it was formed. Now we know. The secret's out.
You can't fool us, Mr. Jackson. Which one? I don't know. All of you.
Exactly. Now, here's the thing. Like you said, Wizard Books 2002, Choosy Co. released a load in 2000s. So then, you know, then there was a lot of mobile sorcery books. Obviously, technology moved on. So then, you know, Choose Your Own Adventure became Choose Your Own Adventure on your mobile.
I got the Shamatanti Hills on mobile. It was pretty good.
Exactly. And then, of course, later, TV shows like Bandersnatch. Remember that? When the Netflix show Bandersnatch, which was written by...
Oh, there was a few of them, weren't there? Yeah, Charlie Brooker.
Yeah. Charlie Brooker wrote Bandersnatch, which was technically a Choose Your Own Adventure TV show where you could choose with the red button, couldn't you? Or choose the selection button.
Yeah.
Crazy. And they did try a few things like that. I think not sure if there was ever a CFAX version. No. There is a goblin. To type in 163162. Oh, damn it. I don't want an holiday in Spain.
Yeah, this is the weather in Merthyr Tydfil. Whoa, that's got nothing to do with killing a goblin.
Oh, I've lost me mojo. But I do believe that they did, CFAX and Oracle did actually have a kind of adventure series in there. And they would have had a soap opera, so it wouldn't surprise me if there was some of that. And then, of course, you know, but they'd never really, because there was a couple of TV shows that we've mentioned through the life of Zapped in the past when we've done the TV bit, where there was like the audience could choose the fate of the outcome. There was a couple of those things. I forget, there was one on ITV that we'd mentioned before. So this idea of, you know, people choosing the roots of something was kind of a prevailing little bit of a mini golden thread. Ultimately, video games are, by definition, later online, kind of, you know, obviously a very fancy version of a similar logic. But it's understandable that idea that people could make choices and they could choose where something went in terms of its story, that's quite a prevailing notion, which is interesting that it kind of goes all the way back to like 1930, but really the version that we're talking about is that Dungeons and Dragons thing. I think it's good that it goes, like you said, it goes in circles, doesn't it? And like you said, there's the revival, goes in circles, comes back, and then it cost 30 years later, it came back again when there was the 30-year anniversary, and they obviously Blood of the Zombies, which was Livingstone's Fighting Fantasy book that he brought out in 2012, that came out, and I think Steve Jackson launched one after that. And
I think so, yeah.
Before we go any further, Adrian, let's maybe take a step into our Blood of the Ninja Zombies Who Are Lost in the Forest of Egg game, because I think we need to begin this, really, don't we? So I'm going to read you the intro blurb, the background, as it were, because I think you have to. Okay. Remember, just for clarity, I didn't write this wholesale. This is, you know, it is AI slop, but on purpose, because I wanted the AI to just, you know, let's see what they can do. All right. So we're going to go with it. So the background. 200 years ago, the province of Egg was the richest land in the north, and every bit of that wealth came out of a chicken. The mother hen of the great coop was 4 stories tall older than the roads, and she laid for the whole kingdom. In return, the people left her alone, kept the coop swept, and never, ever counted her eggs when she could hear them. Then came the shogun of the Eastern Steppes, who wanted the mother hen for himself, and who sent 40 of his finest ninjas over the wall one night to take her. What happened in the great coop is not written down. What is known is that the 40 went in, and the 40 are still in there, and they have been there ever since. She did not kill them, though. This is the cruel part. She cursed them, took their sense of direction, took their shins. Took their shins, turned them grey and slow, and endlessly, hopelessly lost. 200 years, those ninjas have wandered the trees, moaning the same 4 words as anything that moves. Left at the big oak. They call them the ninja zombies now, and they call the trees the Forest of Egg, which is spelled wrong, and has been since Colin Forrest bought the deeds and wrote his own name on them. Remember, I didn't make this up. Nobody goes in. Merchants take the long road round. The wall of stacked eggs on the eastern side has grown 900 high and 1/4 of a mile long because the mother hen has never stopped laying and nobody had ever dared move them. On a still night, you can hear the wall settle. On a still night, you can hear them moaning too. Your mission: you are AD, Ninja of the Middling Path, 3rd best in the class of 3, holder of a certificate that says participated. Your master gave you this task at dawn in front of everyone with the particular smile of a man solving 2 problems at once. Go into the Forest of Egg, find whatever is left of the 40 and break the curse. Do that and the Middling Path becomes the first path and your name goes on the wall of the dojo in gold. You carry a katana that has been blunt since your uncle moved house and a novelty egg cup you are wearing as a helmet, which felt like a joke at the time, is now the only armor you own. The tree line is ahead. It is warm, it smells like breakfast, and something underneath breakfast. Your skill, stamina, and luck are on the sheet above, which I've got. I'll keep them for you. So at the moment, you've got your skill, stamina, and luck. Roll up your sleeves. Begin the adventure. Okay, so we'll go to the adventure, shall we?
Okay, go on then.
You crouch at the tree line as the light goes. Under the branches, the ground is pale and uneven, and it takes you a moment to understand why. It is not stone, it is shell, packed a foot deep, 200 years of it, and it crunches under everything. Somewhere ahead, the morning starts, and not the usual moaning. Somewhere ahead, the moaning starts, and it's not the usual moaning. It carries, no, it was definitely the other big oak. Another voice further off disagrees. The argument spreads through the trees like weather. If you slip in along the path of the broken yoke, turn to 12. If you scale the wall of stacked eggs, turn to 47. If you simply shout, hello, turn to 88. What would you like to do?
The first one, 12.
Okay.
Slipping. I'm going to slip in.
The path is paved with something that was recently inside something. It grips your sandals with real affection and lets go with a noise you will hear again later in life. Half buried in the yoke lies an egg the size of a fist, cold grey and faintly humming. It has been here a very long time and has clearly had a difficult one. Doesn't say what that was. If you pocket the ancient egg, turn to 34. If you leave it well alone, turn to 34. It's the same page.
What ancient egg?
You go to 34.
There was no mention of an
regardless.
ancient egg.
That's just,
well,
what are you going to do?
I'll Schrodinger's egg it. I'll both take it and not take it.
Sorry, I didn't write this. It just says you reach the no, because I'm doing this. This is live as it happens. You reach the clearing of mild disappointment. At its centre stands a signpost with 400 arrows on it. No, forget the egg. At its centre stands a signpost with 400 arrows on it, every single one pointing at the signpost. The zombie ninja sits at its base eating a Scotch egg with a terrible technique. He looks up. Yolk goes everywhere. Some of it yours now. Right. It says if you turn to speak, turn to 71. If you draw your blunt katana, turn to 130. If you hide behind the signpost until he leaves, turn to 96. But we'll hold it there. We'll hold it. Hold it there. On that cliffhanger with the Scotch egg eating ninja with a terrible technique. We'll leave it there. I don't. Sometimes, I did ask the AI to get a bit wild. It really has, hasn't it? So
what Scotch egg gets a yolk?
Don't.
As in a runny yolk.
Don't go there. I didn't invent it. I wanted to go with it just to see. This is the pinnacle of new technology, isn't it? So let's see what it can come up with, and it's come up with utter gibberish shite. But that's fun. That's the fun part. We'll see. We'll pick up the adventure in a little while. So there you go. Now. books that we've looked at for the podcast, then, Adrian, to talk us through the books that you have gone through, because we've both read a few. Yeah, we played them. So
I think you've read one more. We both did a couple. So we both did Deathtrap Dungeon. Deathtrap Dungeon is number 6 in the Fighting Fantasy series. Came out in 1984. We'll talk about the illustration stuff. Ian McCaig illustrated it. Written by Sir Ian Livingstone. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And it's widely regarded as one of the best. We also did House of Hell.
We did.
This is book 10 in the Fighting Fantasy series. Steve Jackson, not the US one. This is the good old homegrown one. Retitled House of Hades in the US.
That must have confused people. Not by that Steve Jackson, but by this other Steve Jackson.
Yeah, with a different title. Anyway, yeah, so that's a interesting one. And I also read through City of Thieves, another classic in the first run sort of thing. This is Ian Livingstone, 1983. This is the 5th in the series. So those are the 3 I read through. Which ones did you read through, Graham?
So I went through House of Hell and Deathtrap Dungeon as well, and I didn't go through the whole book. I played them multiple times, obviously, to no success, because I met. I also played Blood of the Zombies, which was the 30-year anniversary Sir Ian Livingstone book that came out, and then I also, because I found it, played through. Not very successfully at all, played through Assassin, which was Mark Smith and Jamie Thompson's entry, book 2 of the Way of the Tiger series. So not fighting fantasy, really. I suppose that more ninja books. What does it say on the side of it? It just says Assassin.
Well, it's Way of the Tiger, isn't it?
Way of the Tiger, Assassin. But yeah, so those are the ones I read. It says on the front, the number 1 adventure game series. So make it that way, Will. But that was my adventures. So how did you find your trip into the Deathtrap Dungeon, or the House of Hell, or the City of Thieves?
So Deathtrap Dungeon is one of those, like I said, it's one of those kind of highly regarded ones. It's very simple, isn't it? But it's got some amusing parts to it. I was thinking, do we want to read out like the intro to these books? I was wondering if you want to
You can read out the intro
bits.
if you want. I've put a summary of them as well. If you want a quick summary, to do the summary of them, if you need to save time. But I think maybe there's mileage in reading out the beginning of them, or
like
a little
we do
bit
the instructions
of it,
and stuff, the stories and stuff. So I'll do a bit anyway.
I think so.
So the background. This is the background to Deathtrap Dungeon. Despite its name, Fang was an ordinary small town in the northern province of Chiang Mai, situated on the banks of the River Kok. So that's Fangkok.
The River Kok,
which is literally the only reason I wanted to do this bit, because I could say Fangkok. Which obviously reminded me of Lair of the White Worm when I sent you that picture, and the Scout.
Yes, I can see that.
So it made a convenient stopover for river traders and passengers throughout most of the year. A few barges, rafts, and sometimes even a large sailboat could usually be found moored at Fang. All that was long ago, before the creation of the Trial of Champions. Now, once a year, the river is crammed with boats as people arrive from hundreds of miles around, hoping to witness the breaking of an ancient tradition in Fang and see a victor in the Trial of Champions. On 1st of May each year, warriors and heroes come to Fang to face the test of their lives. Survival is unlikely, yet many take the risk, for the prize is great, a purse of 10,000 gold pieces and the freedom of Chiang Mai forever. However, to become champion is no easy task. Some years ago, a powerful baron of Fang called Succumvit decided to bring attention to his town by creating the ultimate contest. With the help of the townspeople, he constructed a labyrinth deep in the hillside behind Fang, from which there was only one exit. The labyrinth was filled with all kinds of deadly tricks and traps and loathsome monsters. Succumvit had designed it in meticulous detail, so that anybody hoping to face its challenge would have to use their wits as well as weapon skill. When he was finally satisfied that all was complete, he put his labyrinth to the test. He picked 10 of his finest guards, and fully armed, they marched into the labyrinth. They were never seen again.
Ooh.
The tale of the ill-fated guard soon spread throughout the land, and it was then that Succumvit announced the first Trial of Champions. Messengers and news sheets carried a challenge, 10,000 gold pieces and the freedom of Chiang Mai forever to any person surviving the perils of the labyrinth of Fang. The first year, 17 brave warriors attempted the walk, as it later came to be known. Not one reappeared. As the years passed and the Trial of Champions continued, attracting more and more challengers and spectators, Fang prospered and would prepare itself months in advance for the spectacle it hosted each May. The town would be decorated, tents erected, dining halls built, musicians, dancers, fire eaters, illusionists, and every sort of entertainer hired, and entries registered from hopeful individuals intent on making the walk. The last week of April found the people of Fang and its visitors in wild celebration. Everybody sang, drank, danced, and laughed until day broke on the 1st of May, when the town thronged to the gates of the labyrinth to watch the first challenge of the year step forward to face the trial of champions. I won't go because it's quite long, the rest of it. There you go. And you turn up and then attempt the war.
Yeah, you turn up and become one of the trial people, don't you? So you're one of the... Is it 5 people that go in with you at the time?
There is. So you count, there's 6 including you. You count, just to end it off, so you count 5 others standing. So you see Baron Succumbit as you stood out basically outside the entrance. You count 5 others standing proudly in line. Their violet scarves displayed for all to see. There are 2 bare-chested barbarians dressed in furs. They stand completely motionless, legs straight and slightly apart. Yeah, poor Burl. Arms thrust forward to rest on the hilts of their long, double-handed battle axes. A sleek elven woman with golden hair and feline green eyes is adjusting the crossbelt and daggers wrapped around her leather tunic. Of the 2 remaining men, one is covered from head to foot in iron plate armor with a plumed helmet and a crested shield. The other is cloaked in black robes, only his dark eyes showing beneath the swathes of his black face scarves. Long knives, a wire garrote, and other silent death weapons hang from his belt. A ninja, basically. Yeah. 5 contenders acknowledge your arrival with almost imperceptible nods of the head, and you turn to face the exultant crowd for the last time. Suddenly, a hush falls over the crowd as Baron Succumbit steps forward holding 6 bamboo sticks. You draw one from the outstretched hand and read the word 5th. Then the trial begins. And in you go.
Dun, 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 dun.
And there's a bit more. So this is a classic dungeon escapade, really, isn't it? It's one of the. It's not outside. It is. This could be done on graph paper. Really, this is a classic Dungeons and Dragons. You go into a dungeon and face the traps and trials and perils within, and see if you can come out the other side. It's very simple. It's very, there's no great thing. No great sort of quest. Usually there's quest in these things, kill a sort of bad guy or find something out. This is just pure greed. Try and get through, earn 10,000 gold and get the freedom of Chiang Mai, and live forever in Bangkok.
Bangkok legend, yeah.
A legend. He's the legend of Bangkok. Oh.
Bangkok. 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 You could fank off, bloody.
Yeah, get away with you. Banky. So it's pretty good. But the problem with this book, all right, and the thing what you might have noticed is, so to play this, it's basically a series of encounters. It's a typical sort of thing. Loads of weird things happen. There's mirror demons. There's all kinds of stuff. You don't know which way to go. And at the end, you meet this guy, and he goes, "Right, have you got the gems?" And you're like, "What gems?" There's no mention of gems. What gems? You could have told me that at the start. So. And it's like, not only some gems, the right gems. You find gems all the way through this, climbing statues to prize out eyes and things like that. And there's loads of different gems you find, but no, it's you got to find the right gems. And then you have, you've got to put them in the right order to get out. And then you've got to test your luck when you get out. So I do like this one. It's quite good. It's very of its time. It's quite simple. Our problems with this are, you are hoodwinked at the start and you don't know you've got the gems. So I think on your first playthrough, you only find out about the gems should you make it through to the end as well, if you play this properly. So it might be a fair few goes in before you go, gems?
I need the gems. Damn you, Livingstone.
Yeah, damn you. And then as well, I think this game is a bit hard. There's a back end to this where you have it's essentially just a series of boss encounters with really high strength monsters. So you befriend one of the barbarians, Throm, rhymes with Crom. And so you befriend him. At one point, you have to fight him, and he's like 10 skill and something like that. There's a pit fiend, which is this massive dinosaur. There's a manticore. What else is there? There's something else. There's the ninja. I think is pretty hard if you've got to get the right way to fight the ninja. I think the ninja got one of the gems. I think if I remember rightly. So you've got to fight these guys, and it's dead hard. So. I don't think I've ever completed this properly. I got to the end on this occasion, but I didn't have the right gems, and I didn't fight the ninja. So, I obviously went the wrong way. So I do like Deathtrap Dungeon. I think it's a strong one. It's got a good atmosphere, and there's some great sort of little set pieces in it. I like what's it called? What's the monster in the bath called? The classic, the one that's on the cover.
The multi-eyed.
I want to say blood, the bloodbath, it's something in it.
Blood.
I can't remember what it is. I'm looking through it now, trying to find the damn thing, but I can't find it. Anyway, yeah, you that's a good encounter and stuff like that. There's the Manticore, that's a good fight. I just feel it's too hard. It's just to go the right way. There's that. Also, there's the giant scorpion or the minotaur, which the dwarf scorpion makes you fight.
The imitator as well. Remember that?
Yeah, there's loads. I mean, even just one I'm just looking at here, it's like
bloody no.
2 guard dogs are skill 7, stamina 7. And that's a trick, that can cost you. Everything's just I know it's supposed to be hard because it's the Trial of Champions and things like that, but I just think, if this was tuned, it needs to be tuned down a little bit. It's just too tricky. It's too difficult. But I do like it. It's got some great set pieces, and it's like, and it's, we'll come to the art history in a moment sort of thing, but the art in this one is particularly good as well. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I had the exact same problem as you. I liked it. I like the premise of it, and I like the fact that it's just straight in and getting on with it. But that's also, even with the best lucky, and I'm not lucky with the dice roll anyway. Even with the best dice rolls you could have, you didn't stand a chance against some of these enemies. I mean, I managed to survive the first couple of, I think it was hobgoblins or orcs. I think orcs, and then after that, I had nothing left for the next, so I was done for. And you don't really, there's not a lot of ways of gathering up more strength. You sort of, if you might come across things that help. But oftentimes, one of the rules of thumb I say for anyone that wants to play any of these fighting fantasy books after the back of this podcast is just, if you see a clear liquid in anything, don't drink it, because it's probably going to kill you one way or another.
I drank them all.
I just end up poisoned all the time. So, but I found in Deathtrap Dungeon, I just found it, the odds were overwhelmingly against me. I just found, I tried it a few different ways. I got maybe sort of further in, but each time I came up against it was always the double barrel. I might look my way, maybe more than actually beat the first, whatever it was, but then the second one would do me in. And I got putrefied by an old man at one point, so I just got turned to stone by somebody, and I don't know if I was making a succession of bad choices or I was just, a victim of this game book's difficulty. But I found it had a great inn. It's one of my favorite inns out of all the ones I read. The inn was really good because it was a bit less traditional in its setting. It was set near the River Cock, which was hilarious, but it was a bit more. It was a competition at the end of the day. You were attracted to a competition to win money, and the motivation was quite good to do it. But as you say, the difficulty of that particular book, I thought maybe it was exclusive to that. Maybe some of them were easy, but after playing Blood of the Zombies, I could tell you that's just how difficult some of these books really are. So I think it was a really good, fun book. And I think it's, out of the ones I read, one of the better ones, purely because they all seem heavily punitive. But two things surprised me. One, the volume of difficulty, how it upped. I mean, it was like playing that Metal Gear Rising. Do you remember that Metal Gear Rising? A game that literally made me want to throw a controller through a window. The difficulty spike went off the chart. So, games with crazy difficulty spikes do my head in, and that book is a book with the difficulty spike. So that was my thought of it. The second thing that surprised me a little bit was, for reasons I can't explain, I thought all of these fighting fantasy books had really horrific deaths in them. And actually, they don't. I don't know if they came later, and that seemed to be a very ninja-y thing, because the ninja one I played was full of them. But it seems to be it doesn't seem to be a thing for these Jackson and Livingstone books at all, which surprised me. I just, for some reason in my mind, I thought they were all quite violent deaths, and I was quite surprised to find they weren't. So, but it's a good one all the same. Yeah. Just hard.
It's usually like this, we'll come to this one, but usually they're just like, your adventure ends here,
Yeah, but it's not like, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, you pass out, your adventure ends here or something like that. But yeah, they're quite sort of, they're not particularly over gory. I don't think
certainly not in comparison to the Assassin and the Way the Tiger books that like complete the other end of the spectrum. I never died so many times gurgling in my own blood and snot and stuff. So,
well, I should have read the one I was meaning to read, I just didn't get time to, was Talisman of Death, because Talisman of Death
is a violent one, right?
Yeah, because it's the same people who did the ninja ones, isn't it? Mark Smith and Jamie Thompson. And it's actually set in Orb. So it's set in the same.
Set in the same world.
Set in the same world, but you're actually you're a person from Earth who gets transported to Orb, and you've got to take this talisman and get it out of the world. I think that's the quest in it. So it's like you're a sort of stranger in a strange land type thing. But I can't remember if that was particularly gory. It wouldn't surprise me if it was, but I think that's got like Far Off Wargrave Bassin and stuff like that and things like that.
Yeah,
So
bound
it's
to
like,
have.
there's stuff like that. But yeah, Deathtrap Dungeon is good. It is good. It's not my favourite, but I think it's just a solid dungeon crawler. What it is. In comparison, the other one that we both read was House of Hell. What was your experience with House of Hell, Graham?
So, House of Hell, well, let's have a look at the blurb, shall we? Your adventure waits, okay? So let's just have a quick skinny of the background. The rain spatters the windscreen relentlessly. You can see no more than a watery gloom as you strain forwards over the steering wheel to see the road ahead. Although the wipers flap valiantly, they are fighting a losing battle as the rain drives harder and harder. Your foot eases off the accelerator. The headlights struggle to light up the road. Damn! You curse the white-haired old man who sent you off along this bumpy track. Probably he meant the second turning on the left, or even right turning. The old fool. Perhaps this is his idea of a joke. After all, didn't you notice a mischievous glint in his eye? Something vaguely sinister? But what sort of nonsense is this anyway? So you've taken a wrong turn and you've got caught in a downpour in the night. The rain will soon ease off. It can't possibly keep up this deluge for this long. And then you'll be able to, watch out! You spin the wheel frantically to the left to avoid the figure who, from nowhere, shows up in the headlights. The car bumps and jolts as it bounces over the rocky roadside and thumps into a ditch. You collect your thoughts. You are unhurt but shaken. Then you remember what has happened. The body. You must have hit the figure which appeared. There was no way you could have avoided him. You spring out the car, praying that he is alive. Your clothes soak up the rain as you hobble back to the road. In the darkness, it is difficult to see anything, but there is no sign of a body. You consider the situation. Are you certain that it was someone and not a trick of the light? Yes. You can remember the arms held up in fright as the car collided and the look of anguish on his face. His face. There was something familiar about that face. A man you recognized. An old man with white hair. Your heart leaps. No, impossible. With a shiver of fear, you race back to the car, jump inside, force the key into the ignition and twist it violently. The starter coughs, splutters, and dies. You hit the key again, but this time as a single shudder is all the engine can manage. You grasp the wheel with your hands and shake it desperately as if to force some life into the car, but the battery is dead. Your car is certainly not budging from that ditch tonight. The situation is hopeless, but now the plight of your car is paramount. Where can you get help? You pass the garage at Mingleford. Mingleford? But that was some 20 miles away. As if in answer, a light appears in the distance. Someone has switched on a bedroom light. What a stroke of luck. It was at least 15 miles back that you passed the last house, and you happen to have broken down just a short distance from someone's house. You button up your coat and open the door. From the outside the car, you can see the building more clearly. Just ahead on the left, a drive winds up to the large house. It is a good 5 minutes walk away, and by the time you reach it, you'll be drenched. But how else will you call the garage? You can't afford to miss tomorrow's appointment. No, you must go. Anyway, you'll probably be able to dry off inside after phoning the garage. You slam the door, turn up your collar, and set off for the house. A flash of lightning lights it up clearly for you, but in your preoccupation with the rain, the warning from above is wasted on you. The house is old, very old, and in a shocking state of repair. The light in the window is flickering, most likely an oil lamp, certainly not electric, and you don't notice the fact that might have turned you back anyway. There is no telephone line going to the house. As you climb the steps to the front door, little do you realize what fate has in store for you. Tonight is going to be a night to remember. Your adventure awaits. May your stamina never fail. Now turn over. And so you end up at this house on the haunted hill, I suppose, really, where you're likely to meet
very much
a bunch of unsavory characters. There's a bit of a sort of a Hammer House of Horror vibe about this particular one, really. So you go into the creepy old, almost vampire-y house, really. So there's The House of Hell's an interesting book in the sense that it's got a very much of horror movie premise, right? So mysterious house, go up on the hill, you go up to the hill, go in the house, and the creepy guy opens the door, and then you've got a series of choices to make. It's very Dracula oriented, to say the least. But it leaps into what it's going to be quite quickly, because right from the get-go, pretty much instantly, you were meeting a ghost, that you get wind that there's a woman that's been kidnapped to be sacrificed. So it's stole out pretty early on that got to basically, you're in this house, you're kind of stuck there, and you've got to try and get out, and also maybe rescue this this person that's going to be sacrificed. So it lays out its story pretty early, and then you start to bump into ghosts that start to give you a bit more of the story. A ghost gets killed by some ghost dogs, which was weird. So it also, I never played Resident Evil, but there was a little bit of, Resident Evil, the haunted house with stuff happening in it. It's kind of a trope in it. So that's kind of the idea of this book, is that you then go around the house trying to find objects that are going to help you. And you basically, your choice is, do you stay in the house and try and solve the puzzle and try and I think it's I can't remember the name of the master of the house now, but there's a
it's
Dracula
Druma.
type figure,
Earl of Druma.
That's right, the Earl of Druma,
which is an anagram of murder.
Yeah, so, but he's basically got it in for you, and you're going to be sacrificed, and all this horrific stuff is happening. And bear in mind, there's also somebody else in there that's going to happen to, and there's a whole bunch of horror movie stuff, and things to encounter, rooms to find in, sneak around. So you can choose really at the beginning whether you sneak into the house and sort of try and do that way, or whether you knock on the front door and go in that way. There's some obvious choices, and those lure you into a particular direction of how you might play the game. What I liked about this is that you can sort of choose your approach. You can either go in quite stealthy and try and sneak about if you can, or you can go in and knock on the front door and be a bit bold and get invited to dinner. And then, do you drink the wine? Don't drink the wine, by the way. I'll just set that stall out early. Don't do that. Don't ever drink wine in this stuff. But you'll end up in this, you end up getting knocked out unconscious at a certain point. You wake up, you can escape out of your ropes, and then you've got to sort of figure out how the hell you're going to get out. Bear in mind that the house is kind of locked down and it's not easy, and there's people moving around handily talking about what they're going to do to you in adjacent rooms more often than not. So you can figure out, I don't want to be hanging around for that. That sounds pretty ropey. You'll find handy things like ropes and things like that. Do pick them up, and objects that you're going to need. It's one of those kind of things. What I liked about this was it got on with the premise of the story pretty quick. And there's some nice characters in it that you bump into, and you get a bit of narrative from them as well. So it's not just all, the more you creep about, the more you explore, the more you pick things up. Yes, there's always a risk attached to picking up something, because it'll either poison you or stab you or fire darts at you, or it might be a ghost that tells you a bit of the story. But you do progress, and there's a nice sense of progression in House of Hell, which I really liked. And the story around it develops quickly. There's definitely some horrific stuff happening. It's all very occult-like and very, very creepy stuff. I like that about it. What I found a little bit, I wouldn't say this isn't a boring story. I think the problem with it is there's lots of short procedural paragraphs. You walk down a corridor. Do you go into door A or door B? Right, okay, door A. You're inside the room. Do you want to do A or B? They're quite short, and that moves the pace along a bit. But it just feels sometimes that there's a lot of those in succession. You go down the corridor. Do you choose to, door B is named the so-and-so room. Do you go in? You go into the so-and-so room. There's nothing much in here. Do you want to stand in the room and check out the drawers, or do you want to leave and go in? Go in the corridor. You are now in the corridor. Do you want to go in the other room? It's like there's a little bit of that. So it's like I imagined it in as if I was playing like an adventure game on traditional text adventure, albeit with the freedom to type in what I liked to a degree. And I just found that it was a little bit, the descriptions of stuff were a little bit perfunctory compared to the Livingstone one, which was actually a lot more descriptive. So I felt like Livingstone's descriptions of stuff were good, but his bosses were stupidly hard. This one had more story in it, which is great, but it was the in-between bits getting there, it just felt a little bit, I don't know, just a little bit it felt stop-starty, I think is the best way to describe it. And because of that, it didn't always sustain its atmosphere. It was at its best, House of Hell, when the characters were explaining stuff that was happening in and around the world you were in. And, and there was this sort of sense of dread that was sort of slowly creeping in, that there was something really bad going to happen. And you were going to be there. And, and at any point you could have chosen to escape out the front door early on, but you didn't. So I quite liked it. It's a good book. I mean, and it is written in a very different style to Livingstone's books. And I had quite a few goes at it. I never made it. I always ended up getting poisoned. This was the book I got most poisoned in. I seem to get poisoned by everything. Poison darts, poison wine, poison this, everything I picked up. Oh, you picked up the book. Oh, it's poisonous pages. I'm like, what? Everything's poison in this house.
Did you not notice everyone walks around with oven mitts on?
I think that was, I should have
marigolds.
Getting the gloves early on would have been a key success metric for me. But I did enjoy House of Hell, and I thought it was really good fun. And I actually quite liked the story again. I quite liked its traditional horror movie type vibes, that one, more than the sort of the competition-y type vibes. Very different approaches to the same sort of idea. I just think that you're rolling the dice a lot on, well, you're not rolling the dice, making lots of choices in corridors about which doors, and then you might be rolling the dice. There's not as much to do in this one early on, and it does get better, but there's not much to do early on. And I wonder if that's a little bit of a blocker, because it starts off quite well, and then there's a bit of a lull where you're just kind of wandering around rooms a lot. But what did you think of it? Well, I mean, that's enough for me.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think what you've noticed is the fact that this story, this book, first appeared in issue 3 of Warlock magazine.
Okay.
Before it became a book. It says it right at the very beginning of the book, right at the very beginning, first appeared in Warlock issue 3. The stories in Warlock were 200 paragraphs, so they were never full 400. So what I'm thinking is that this was written for a 200 paragraphs adventure, and then it needed to be bulked out to 400, which is why you've got lots of those interstitial things. You find yourself outside. Do you want to go to this room or that room? Are you sure about that? You want to go to that room or this room? And so if you think about that, it's like you've got a condensed story in 200, and there's suddenly like, well, I've got to add another 200 paragraphs. Maybe that's what you're picking up on. Maybe, I don't know. I never read the original in Warlock. I think I started collecting Warlock at issue 4, so I never read the original. But it'd be interesting to read that original Warlock version of this, because I don't know what it is. But saying that, I like the atmosphere in this. It's proper. It's a nice. There's not many gothic game books. And like I said, I like the fact that Jackson does something different with each one of his approaches. So he does magic, he does space, he does horror, he does superheroes, he does you are the monster, not the hero. He does these different things in each of his books, which I think is always quite interesting. This is what I think he was wanting to do. He was like, he always wanted to do something different with the format, not just, it's another fantasy thing where you're the hero and you got to go solve this thing. Here, you know, it's clearly set in the real world, and I think this is the first one as well that's set in the real world.
Might be.
To show that they don't just have to be fantasy stories. So, you know, this is number 10, and it's the first one. So I do like this. I completely agree with you. There is too much. I think because of those extra paragraphs, it feels confusing as to where you are in the house at any time. Because one landing feels pretty much like another landing, and one small corridor with a window at the end feels very much like another one. And you're like, oh, you want to go in the Balthus room or the Azazel room or this room or that room? And you're like, I don't know, do I? Yeah, okay. Because of course I'm going to go in them, aren't I? I mean, how am I going to find anything? You need to go in them all to find them. My problem with the book is with the fear system. Because
I was going to mention that.
So this has got a fear system in it. And what fear is basically, because you're a normal guy in you're kind of a Lovecraftian hero almost sort of thing. In the fact not quite, but you're that sort of normal guy in a, oh my God, what have I stumbled into? This thing where there's ghosts and zombies and vampires and satanic sacrifices and rituals. And I open the door, and then so you have a skill thing. So you've got your skill, stamina, and luck, but you've also got a fear rating, and you roll a dice, add 6, and that's your fear, the amount of fear you can take. And then when you see something scary, that gives you fear points. It can be 1, 2, or 3, depending on what it is. And so basically, I think right near the start, I examined this painting and it started talking to me. That gave me some fear points. Then obviously you get clubbed. All the beginning, and the other thing as well, the structure of this book is odd because it starts off with some options, but it all bottlenecks to you getting smacked on the head and passing out and ending up in the room. All roads lead to that point. So it's like I can't remember what they call that structure in narrative. So then what else did I do? I think then I got a zombie. I found a zombie, so I got some fear points from that. I went downstairs. I did something else. There was a ghost came in, a headless ghost. That gave me fear points. I tried to open the door downstairs, and there was a big goat-headed figure. That gave me fear points. Then I tricked a trap door in the kitchen and fell through a hole, and that killed me off. I died of fright through falling through a hole in the floor. I was like, oh, great.
Yeah.
So I think those things, I mean, you kind of, obviously when you played it, you avoid them. You know, I don't go there because I don't need the fear points. And I think this is a game of learning the route. I mean, most of them are. I mean, and that's the thing, isn't it, with all these books? It's learn the route and you can complete them easily. But except from Deathtrap Dungeon, because those fights you've got to do. If you roll 7, you'd never play it, would you? If you roll 7 skill and 14 stamina.
No.
You'd be like, I'm re-rolling that. I'm re-rolling.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever
doing it again?
I'm curious to know if anyone was that honest. I'm going to play through this book. Oh, I've rolled a 1 for my skill and a double 1 for my stamina. Was anyone ever that honest?
It's I believe they were.
Because you'd just die. No, you'd have no chance in Deathtrap Dungeon. You'd trip over your own feet. Anyway, so that's the thing with this book. It's quite punitive and there's a lot to kind of, a lot of options to explore things which scare the shit out of you, and then you're kind of done for quite quickly with that fear thing. So I don't know whether that's a consequence of the way this book was obviously created. 200 then stretch out to 400. I'm not quite sure about how that worked. But I do like it. I like the fact that it does something different. And it's the first real world book, and it's a horror book. So that those are the elements I like of it. But I just think there's, like you said, there's too much time spent on on landings looking at doors.
Mm.
But anyway, there you go. So that's the two we both did. Do you want to do one of yours? Or shall I do... Yeah, you do one of yours because you read another couple. We'll do these briefly.
Okay, I'll do these briefly because, I mean, I'll firstly talk about Assassin. So Assassin is the second book in the Way of the Tiger series. And obviously, this is set in the world of Orb. And there's a couple of things... firstly... Let's just talk a little bit about the background. I won't go too much into it, just because it's quite long, the background for this. It's pretty epic. So I'll just go into the sort of simplest. He says, on the magical world of Orb, alone in the sea that the people of the man march call Endless, lies the mystical island of tranquil dreams. Oh, it sounds like an album by Mike Oldfield, that. Many years have passed since the time when, as an infant, you first saw its golden shores and emerald rice meadows. The servant brought you, braving the distant leagues of the ponderous ocean from lands to which you have never returned. Your loyal servant laid you, an orphan, at the steps of the Temple of the Rock, praying that the monks would care for you, for she was frail and dying of a hideous curse. Monks have lived on the island for centuries, dedicated to the worship of their god Quan, he who speaks the holy words of power, supreme master of unarmed combat. They live only to help others resist the evil that infests the world. Seeing that you were alone and needed care, the monks took you in and you became an acolyte of the Temple of the Rock. Nothing was made of the strange birthmark shaped like a crown which you carry on your thigh, though you remember that the old servant insisted that it was of mystical importance. Whenever you have asked about this, the monks have bade you meditate and be patient. The most powerful, ancient and powerful of them all, Nin Jashai, Grand Master of the Dawn, became your foster father. He gave you guidance and training in the calm goodness of Quan, knowledge of men and their ways, and how to meditate so that your mind floats free of your body and rides the winds in search of truth. In other words, he was smoking a lot of weed. From the age of 6, however, most of your time has been spent learning the way of the tiger. Now you are a ninja, a master of martial arts and deadly assassin who can kill the most powerful enemies, unseen and unsuspected. Like a tiger, you are strong, stealthy, agile, patient in the stalking of prey, and deadly. In the land of plenty and the man march, the fabled ninja known as the Men with No Shadow are held in awe. The mere mention of ninja strikes fear into people's hearts, but you are one of the few who worship Quan and follow the way of the tiger. Use your skill as a bringer of death to rid the world of evildoers. So it goes on, ninja stuff. And then there's a lot to this. Essentially, it's a ninja-based adventure where you utilize things like inner force, skills, escapology, arrow cutting, poison. It's very much in the heart of ninja stuff. And it continues the adventures that you sort of following on from the first book, which was the first one called Way of the Tiger, I think. Yeah,
is that one Assassin you've got? I think the first one was Avenger.
Yeah, Avenger. Sorry, yeah. So Avenger. So there's Avenger, and that's right. Yeah. So it says here actually. Yeah, I should have read that. If you have not played and successfully completed book 1, Avenger in the Way of the Tiger series, then begin this book with the equipment listed. Otherwise, you can carry on the adventure with your character. So the idea here is, I'm just trying to. Essentially, you've got to find the scroll. You've got to return that. You end up with the scrolls of Ketsuin, and you get them from the Grand Master of Dawn. He's killed off by somebody called the Scarlet Mantis and the Doom Legion. You've then got to get the scrolls of Ketsuin back into the rightful place on the Temple of Rock on the Island of Dreams. And that's the quest. So you've got to basically get the, very Last Ninja actually, isn't it? Get the scrolls, the Koga scrolls in that sense, but obviously they're all ninja things. So principally, this is a follow-on from that. You are the ninja of the character and you go off and attempt to get the scrolls and get them. The problem being that not everyone wants you to do that. In fact, pretty much everything in the world of Orb is either very fearful of ninjas or tries to kill you one way or another. More often, the encounters are almost always with something horrific and something evil, and it's quite a cutthroat book. And I'll give you an example of that. So just on a random page, so it says, suddenly you rip the canvas open and jump into the tent to be greeted by gasps of astonishment. With blurring speed, you hurl a shuriken at Jikaku's throat. Your throw is accurate, but somehow, incredibly, has little effect, leaving only a slight gash to mark its passage. In a moment, Akira has an arrow ready in his bow, and Jikaku has shouted for the guards. You manage to avoid Akira's first arrow, but soon the guards are upon you, and once you dispatch them with a series of kicks and punches, Akira has sent another arrow straight through your neck and out the other side. It is over for you, and you die in a pool of blood. So that's the story of the ninja books, the Way of the Tiger books. That happens a lot. In this one and in Avenger particularly, most of the deaths involve pools of blood or gurgling and choking in your own spit, usually, that kind of thing, or drowning and thrashing. There's a lot of thrashing in these books. You thrash around on the floor a lot and gurgling and choke. But this is a book about ninjas. There's actually an instruction manual for ninjas at the beginning of these books, which appealed to me massively in that early phase. So there's actually the moves drawn out. So you can learn how to do the winged horse kick, the leaping tiger kick, the fork lightning kick, the tiger's paw punch. So you could actually learn to do the moves, which a friend of mine actually did and then became a ninja for real. No joke. Really did. This book was full of the skills of ninjas, arrow cutting and things like that. Fodder for the eager mind of someone in their very early 13, 14 years old and very impressionable. So I was quite into these books because of the ninja world they were in. I'm replaying it again for this. I died almost instantly in every direction I went within about 3 or 4 choices. So 3 choices in, dead. Got the scrolls, dead. You met so-and-so, said the wrong thing to them, dead. They're really hard. And obviously I tried to do it with I followed the baseline character. I didn't have the one from the previous game, so I followed the baseline. I lasted no time whatsoever. That game is really, game book is really, it makes the Livingstone books look positively easy. It was so hard. I got barely anywhere into it. Now, I don't know if you have to be in the zone, or maybe if you've played Avenger and you've built up a good series of stats, and you're sort of in the zone with the books. That there is a space where you get into the rhythm of the book, and I think that's what this is important to note with the Way of the Tiger books, is that you need to be in the rhythm of the books to get into them. So if you were playing this after you finished Avenger, you'd be better at it because you'd be in that rhythm. Coming at this for after essentially a 35, 40 year gap. I wasn't so great at it. I got to be the worst ninja in the world. I mean, I was clumsy and shit, and that's saying something. I played that ninja game that you had on your, was it Tenchu Z, whatever it was, and I was a crap ninja in that. So ninja ain't my thing, clearly. No. But in this, I just seemed to die all the time. I just couldn't seem to find a direction where I wasn't at least 3 or 4 choices away from a death. And I don't know, is there a route through? I think what I could gather from that, and I could be wrong, and somebody will correct me who's more knowledgeable about playing these. I think there's a route through them, and that's the route. There's one route, and if you don't go on that route, you're dead. And it's going to take you at least 20 goes to figure that route. And if you don't write down your attempts, you're never going to figure it out because you're just going to end up dead all the time. Because one wrong choice in that game and you are dead meat, and violently so. So I enjoyed going back to it for the novelty of all that ninja stuff, and it did make me laugh because it's so into ninjas. It's crazy. No wonder it got people into ninjas. It's like, it makes it sound like the coolest bloody thing in the world. It's essentially, considering there's an assassin and Avenger and assassin, very different stories. Considering you're an assassin in this, it's not a whole lot of assassination ninja stuff going on. It's more you're a ninja on an adventure, very Last Ninja type. But I enjoyed going back to it for the novelty's sake and finding this book in a box of stuff from my misspent youth. I found all sorts of crazy stuff in there, including that and a whole bunch of other bits and bobs. But I even found a couple of C64 discs and all sorts. God knows what's on them. I've no idea. But yeah, so I enjoyed my time with it. Did I get the scrolls of Ketsuin and followed all of that? Was I following the full word of Quan? I don't think I did. I wasn't a very good disciple of Quan, it seems. I wasn't going to be around long. You didn't play the ninja one, but did you play the ninja games back then? Did you enjoy them, or was you more in the
I played
Fighting Fantasy world?
No, I played all of them because we got them, and I think we played a lot of the other ones. All those you said there's like 21 series started, and all of them went off. So we kind of tried a lot of them because we just loved the format. Me and a friend. We just love playing these things, but most of them are rubbish, really crap. And you can see why they failed. They just weren't very good. These ones actually stood up, and I think it's because obviously, they started in Fighting Fantasy. They wrote Talisman of Death, and they basically, Mark Gascoigne, he edited Titan, so he's part of he's got a good tutelage, shall we say? I mean, they're good writers, but they work with Jackson and Livingstone, so there was a bit of heritage there. So no, I enjoyed them. There were 6 of them, weren't there? And I think the second one was just called Avenger or Assassin because they needed a cool word that began with A, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, because Avenger, Assassin. Isn't it what the third one was called? Fourth one was Usurper, wasn't it? And Usurper. Then there was the Warbringer. Was that one of them? I think that was the 6th. Yeah, something. Yeah. Then Ninjury was probably one of them. Ninjury. Yeah, that was the one. But no. Yeah, I quite liked them. I've always had a bit of time for them, but they're just dead hard.
It was surprised me how difficult it was. I've really got nowhere, I have to say. I mean, I tried, but I just didn't really get anywhere.
Yeah. So what was there? There was... what was it?
I'm also not very lucky with
1.
dice rolls. I've never been that lucky with dice rolls. I just seem to get low numbers all the time.
Yeah. There was Assassin, Usurper, Overlord, Warbringer, and Inferno.
Yeah, right. There we go.
They did another one in 2015 called Redeemer.
Okay.
Ooh. So City of Thieves. That was the other one I did.
Yeah.
So I'll read the background before I get into it again. You are an adventurer in a world of monsters and magic, living by quickness of wit and skill of sword. I'll praise you this actually because it's quite long. Essentially, you walk into this town, and then it's supposed to be this really nice town of Silverton, and you're like, oh, it's dead rich and everyone, but everyone looks petrified and terrified. And then someone comes out going, nightfall, nightfall, everyone indoors. So everyone legs indoors, and you go into the local tavern, and the tavern innkeeper bolts the doors, and people are like, ooh. And then this guy knocks on the door, open up, it's me, it's Owen Caroliff. And he opens the door and lets Owen Caroliff in, and he talks to you basically, and he tells you this story that, I'll read the story out here. Where is it? Stranger, I know of you and seek your aid. My name is Owen Caroliff, and I am the mayor of Silverton. We are in great trouble and danger. We are living under a curse, and it is I who must rid us of it. 10 days ago, 2 messengers of evil rode into town on huge black stallions with fiery red eyes. It was impossible to see the faces of the riders, for they wore long black cloaks with hoods pulled over them. Their voices were cold, and each word spoken ended with an unnerving hiss. They asked me by name. When I came to greet them, they wanted to take my beloved daughter, Mirelle, to stay with their master, Zanbar Bone. No doubt you know that he's the Night Prince. Do you know that, Graham? Do you know he's the Night Prince?
No, I know now.
Of course, I refused their demand, and without another word, they turned and rode slowly out of the town, heads down and shoulders hunched. I knew then that beneath the cloaks were hidden the skeletal and soulless bodies of spirit stalkers. Zanbar Bone always uses them as his messengers. They will complete their mission or die in the attempt, and they do not die easily. Only a silver arrow through their heart will release those evil beings. Who knows what it would take to kill Zanbar Bone? Anyway, that same night after the Spirit Stalkers left, our troubles began. The Night Prince was angry and determined to harm us. 6 moon dogs came, each stronger than 4 men, each with razor-sharp fangs. They stalked through the town, entering homes through open windows and killing the poor people inside. In the morning, we counted 23 dead. So they barred the windows, basically, until you've turned up. And he says, you've got to go to Port Blacksand, the infamous city of thieves, find Nicodemus, who can tell you how to kill Zanbar Bone, and go off and kill Zanbar Bone if you pretty would. And that's what you've got to do. So essentially, you're off to the City of Thieves to find Nicodemus, this wizard guy who lives there, and then he'll tell you what to do to kill this Zanbar Bone and lift the curse. Okay, then that's what you got to do. So classic Ian Livingstone. Small location, single location. Warlock Firetop Mountain in the Firetop. Forest of Doom. You're in a forest. The Forest of Doom. Citadel location. So in these early books, you're very locality based. I've noticed that in these books. The later books became much more wide ranging. You'd travel quite a lot between places and things like that. In these early books, they're very location based. So City of Thieves, Island of the Lizard King, Forest of Doom, Deathtrap Dungeon, Scorpion Swamp, Cavern, House of Hell, your location. So here we are in City of Thieves. And it's basically it's a tromp through a classic city where anything goes, basically, where pirates live and buccaneers and people practice strange magic and anything. But what you are in this book is that you're a psychopath. You're just an absolute out-and-out psychopath. There's one bit, right? I walked into, it says there's a door open. Do you want to go in? I'm like, yeah, okay. I just walked into this house. It says, you hear some mumbling from behind this sheet. Do you want to go have a look? But yeah, I'll have a look. And there's an ogre in there. And this ogre is like mumbling, going, oh, I'm dead hungry. They stole all my food. So I gave him a couple of my provisions and he ate them. And because he didn't say thank you, I killed him. Like, you're a psycho. You don't have to. You can just walk out, but you can fight him and kill him. It's like this poor ogre. You just walked into his house and killed him. There's loads of stuff you can do. There's also a bit where this young guy is pushing his barrel of fruits towards you. And he goes, do you want to go and taste some of his fruits? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, oh, you'll love me plums or something. I've got a nice bag of plums here for you.
Oh, I love your plums.
I was like, oh, okay. There's
nice
another bit
plums.
where you go and see this elf, and he's a candle maker. And he says, you can buy one of these candles if you want. But if you wish to see my magic candle in the back, come with me. I was like, oh, all right.
Oh, hello.
The right dubious stuff going on in the City of Thieves. But this is another one where I didn't finish it. I didn't quite get to the end because what happens is midway through, you find your way to what's his face? You find his way to Nicodemus, the wizard, and then he basically tells you there's a number of things you've got to get to kill the Zambar Bone. These things you've got to get to kill Zambar Bone. You've got to get a white unicorn in a yellow sun tattooed on your forehead. That's the first thing you have to do. You have to find a silver arrow and shoot that in his heart. And then when you shot him in the heart, that will sort of paralyze him for a moment. And then you've got a rubber mixture of black pearl, hag's hair, and lotus flowers in his eyes, and that'll cause him to
not that old
die.
Mixture. That's brute. In other words, to you and me, that's that's what they call that.
So by the time I came out the other side of the city, I couldn't find I didn't find the tattooist, and I didn't have the hag's hair. So it says you just have to go back to this village because you've caused so much ruckus in the town. You're not welcome anymore. You can't go back in. So that's what I did. So I didn't manage to do it. But this game is pretty easy in the sense of there are no really hard monsters. There's a hard fight towards the end where these two guards you have to fight, these two sort of troll guards. And that's it. There's a couple of them, but you can escape after killing the first one and leg it. And that's how you kind of get away. And if you kill them both, another guard's come and you have this sort of chase sequence where you get out, and that's why you get out of the city. But it's the monsters are pretty easy. There's no real big fights. I don't know if there are on the true path because obviously I didn't find a couple of things, but I didn't find anything. And in fact, there was, apart from that last fight, I never lost any stamina.
Okay.
So it's not that hard, but it's quite an interesting place to visit. I prefer this one to Deathtrap Dungeon. I think it's a more interesting book. It's a more interesting story. It's a more interesting location. There's more going on. There's a great bit where I just walked on this pirate ship and terrorized these pirates. I'm a sociopath. I just climbed at the back of this pirate ship, smacked one around the back of the head with a thing, walked downstairs, watched this guy get into a bath and threatened him unless he told me what I needed to know, and then went and ransacked some other pirates who were asleep in the nearby cabin and left.
Standard
They would wake up and go, what happened here? What happened here?
Yeah.
Some guy just came on, this psychopath. I quite enjoy City Thieves. I do like it. And I think it's got, there's nice, it's good streets to go down and you can head in different places and different ways. There's things to find out, there's shops to go in, there's things going on. Not everything kills you. There's lots of bonuses. There's weird encounters. There's this really weird encounter where you hear this argument in this house and you just walk in and these two old women dressed as babies or young girls having this argument. Dressed as young girls having this argument over all these sort of really sort of mucked up toys. They've all got nails drilled into these, hammered into these toys, and then you give them something and they argue over that. So then you can eat their soup if you want. It tastes horrible, but it gives you 5 stamina points. I'm not listening, so it was all right. So there's loads of weird encounters in it like this. It's kind of got a really strange air to this, but I did quite like it. And at least you are supposed to be finding things, and I don't know if some of those things are before you find Nicodemus. I can't remember. Maybe they are. So the hags here, the tattooist, maybe I missed them in the first half. I'm not quite sure because you find Nicodemus halfway through. One thing I did do though was for both Deathtrap Dungeon and City of Thieves, I kept a note of all my paragraphs that I went to see how many it was. So City of Thieves, I wasn't quite at the end, but I'd 116 paragraphs. Okay. And getting all the way to the last part of Deathtrap Dungeon was 123. So I think it's quite interesting. It's
average?
Like 400.
Yes, that's not bad. About halfway.
So you go it's about a third. It's less than a third. So on a playthrough of these, you only actually encounter roughly about a third of the stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? But but I like City of Thieves. I think City of Thieves is a good one. It isn't too hard. I think with a few goes, you'd have this cracked. But I think you'd have a good time doing it, and it's not too hard. And there's some great artwork in it, and I think it's one of my favorites, and I enjoyed going back to this one. Best of the 3 I played.
Cool. I suppose that just leaves Blood of the Zombies, really, which was the last one I did. Now, I won't go too far into this, really. The story then, and I'll summarise it because it's about 6 pages. You're a student travelling in Romania when you're ambushed, knocked out, and sold to Gindrich. You're a disfigured recluse who has spent his fortune on revenge against a world he believes has mocked him. His scientists, Gober, Steen, and Lange, have engineered a mutated gene carried in human blood, and his henchmen have been abducting people by the 100 and holding them in the cellars of Goraya Castle so it can be injected into them. You wake up chained to one of the cells under the eye of a jailer, Otto, with an army nearly complete and your own turn on the list. So you know that really this is an escape game. You break out the cell, work upwards and outwards through the castle, basements and laboratories where you're The conversations are done, kitchens, offices, and the library, the north and the west wings and the grounds. There's no starting equipment, again. So everything you fight with is scavenged on the way, and the castle is stocked with keys, tools, and weapons that gate later routes, which is why the book rewards opening every door and looking behind everything. Along the way, you piece together what Yor is doing from what has been left lying around, including in a journal kept by another captive, Amy Fletcher, who is the one prisoner Livingstone that tells you not to shoot and who must be found and freed. And that's kind of the premise of the game, really, there. To win, you have to confront Yor himself, rescue Amy, get out through the main gates, and have accounted for the entire horde along the way, because leaving any of them standing means the outbreak survives. Miss even a few, and the castle lets you walk out into an ending that is not the winning one. Now, interestingly, with this particular game, this was a app before it was a game, a game book. So it was released as part of Livingstone's 30th anniversary Fighting Fantasy, and it is an odd one out because of that. So it dropped skill and luck. It's entirely based on stamina, which and kind of a number of zombies that you kill, because you've got to kill them all in order to get out of the thing, which is interesting. So the Tin Man digital games version, which launched alongside it, was actually received really well, better actually in some instances than the book. The book was received well enough, but it was also criticised and divided fans because it was considered as being fighting fantasy, but also incredibly difficult with too many instant deaths, with replayability draining away because you kept meeting the same zombies, looking for identical ones that you hadn't found. And although it rewards curiosity in the book, for losing that constant fear thing that was in some of the others, it also is a bit sort of, as with all of these things, very difficult in there's difficulty spikes as well. And some people felt that it borrowed a little bit from some of the health management of the video game Left 4 Dead as well. And there was a little bit of borrowing going on into the sort of the mechanics of the book. And I played it. It felt very similar to the Jackson House of the Dead, I have to say. House of Hell, sorry. So it felt quite similar to House of Hell in its own way, but also borrowed. There was lots of, I wouldn't say borrowed more than, there was just hints of things like a lot of horror movie influence in it. So a bit of Hostel in there and a bit of this. There was clearly sort of...
Very much set in Romania where you get kidnapped and...
Yeah. It's just there's a lot of later, 30 years of movies and games and other stuff had its mark. And so Blood of the Zombies was a good title to capture the essence of the fighting fantasy, but it didn't feel much like a fighting fantasy. It felt more like a survival horror / book version of Hostel, really, in some ways. So it was like escape from the crazy loony place with all the the hostel-y stuff going on, and also make sure you kill all the zombies, a la Resident Evil. It's just there's a lot of other games in it, I think, and inevitably that's going to happen, right? It played okay. It was very, very difficult, I have to say, and I don't know that it was an anniversary book. That's all I'll say. It was okay, but it was an anniversary book, and clearly that first one that Ian Livingstone had written in a while, and it kind of showed. So it wore its influences heavily on its sleeve, and the earlier books are a lot better. That's all I'll say, and they're much more fun. So, it was nice to see it. And I didn't try the app, which I imagine probably would be a little bit more interactive, I guess. But there you go. Now, that was kind of my take on it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the early ones that I'd bought for this podcast, which was obviously the Steve Jackson and the earliest Ian Livingstone one. But if you want to pick them up, I would suggest, by the way, and I don't mean to be mean to Mr. Livingstone. So Ian Livingstone is a lovely guy. He really is. But I would suggest that don't make that, if you're going to go and play any of these fighting fantasy books, don't make that one the one you go back to. Don't make that your first one. Go back, go onto Amazon, get the older ones, play those first. Don't make Blood of the Zombies your go-to first choice, because I don't think you'll enjoy it that much, which is fair enough. So, you don't have to go and enjoy it all that much, do you? So, but there you go.
Yeah, I remember playing it when it came out, because I bought it as well, because I was quite, it's like a thing, I'll get that. I think we were talking about it at work, I think. We worked together, and and I remember it happening. So I got it, and I just thought it was like, I thought it was too, I think by this point, zombies were becoming just a bit, zombies again. I think The Walking Dead was, sort of draining all the life, unintended, I guess, out of the zombie sort of stuff. Yeah, and becoming a bit like zombies. You'd had obviously Schneider's Dawn of the Dead remake, 2005. So
was Z by then, I think, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, I can't remember sort of thing. But, when this came out, I just felt like zombies were a bit overplayed. And I just felt that this one just didn't, it's more zombies. And it was overwhelming. Just, and I guess that's a zombie apocalypse or a zombie, whatever. But it didn't feel, the balance was well off for a game book. It didn't feel in a particularly enjoyable way. And I don't think, I'm not quite sure. I don't think, right, and it's not my place to say they write what they want and everything like that. But if I was going to write a 30th anniversary book for fighting fantasy, it would have been a fantasy book.
Yeah.
I don't think set it in a castle in Romania or wherever this was is what
hostile.
It's not what I wanted. I mean, no. I wanted something.
That was the dividing thing with fans.
Yeah, another return to City of Thieves or something, or the Lizard King's back, or the Forest of Doom is acting up, or something. Give me a sequel to a classic. You did that with Return to Firetop Mountain. You did it with Trial of Champions with Deathtrap Dungeon 2 and Army of Darkness. You did something like that. You did these things, sort of things. So there was plenty of opportunity to revisit one of the classics.
Yeah.
And do that. And I think that should have been the plot for the 30th anniversary one. For me, anyway. That's just what
I agree. Now, we need to return back to our own adventure, Adrian, because
we do.
We do need to go back there. We do. So, the blood of the ninja zombies and the Forest of Egg. And we left it on a cliffhanger, didn't we? So I'll just reiterate that you are currently on page 34 or number 34.
Of course I am. That was my only choice.
And it was, never mind that. You'd reached the clearing of mild disappointment. At its centre stands a signpost with 400 arrows on it, every single one pointing at the signpost. A zombie ninja sits at its base eating a Scotch egg with a terrible technique. He looks up, yolk goes everywhere. Some of it is yours now. If you speak to him, turn to 71.
I want that
If
yolk.
you draw your blunt katana, turn to 130. If you hide behind the signpost until he leaves, turn to 96. What do you do?
Whip out my katana.
Okay. Kevin sighs, puts down his Scotch egg with a genuine regret and assumes a fighting stance.
Kevin?
Kevin the Ninja Zombie, yeah.
I thought his name was Kevin Size.
No, he's Kevin the Ninja Zombie. Kevin Size. He's put his Scotch egg down with genuine regret and assumes a fighting stance on his backward shins. This is obsessed with shins. So, you've got Kevin the Zombie Ninja, skill 7, stamina 9. Each round of you both roll a dice. The highest skill wins. The loser takes 2 stamina. So I'll click on fight around. And it says your attack, strength 16, 13. You landed each round. So we'll try that. You landed the first attack. You landed the second attack, Adrian. You landed the third attack. You landed the fourth attack. And the fifth attack.
He's dead.
He's hit you. No, he's hit you.
Oh, he's
going
dead.
on for way longer than it should.
No,
not yet. It's not. No, he's still going strong at the moment. Blades lock. Nothing happened there. There we go. Kevin falls apart in the order he was assembled. Among the pieces, you find a spare shin, sturdy as a fence post, and a hip flask engraved Dwarf Bishop's Reserve, 1987. The Scotch egg you leave. You are a ninja, not an animal. You now carry a spare shin and a flask of Dwarf Bishop's Reserve. Head for the marsh, turn to 96. Okay. The Yoke Marsh is warm, waist deep, and moving very slightly against the wind. Steam comes off it in polite little clouds. Away to your left stands a barn with a door 40 feet tall. That's a big door.
That's a massive door. It's like the one out of Tron, 40 feet thick.
Someone has painted Deborah across it in letters you can read from orbit. If you wade straight across, turn to 118. If you go round by the barn, turn to 160. If this feels like a moment for the flask, turn to 174.
Yeah, let's get drunk.
You're hitting the flask, okay. It is not brandy, it is eggnog, laid down in 1987, and it has opinions. Warmth floods through you, along with brief vision of Colin Forrest, who leans in and says the way out is past the big one. Then apologizes for the spelling of everything. You feel considerably better and slightly haunted. Stamina restored by 4. If you wade across, turn to 118. If you go round by the barn, turn to 160.
Let's do the barn.
You knock, the door opens, the way a hanger opens, and a chicken the size of a coach leans out and looks down at you with an intelligence you are not braced for. This is Deborah. She is wearing your novelty egg cup on her head. You have no idea how, and there is no polite way to raise it. If you bow ninja to chicken, turn to 193. If you sneak past towards the great coop, turn to 186.
I'll bow. I like the idea of bowing to a giant chicken.
Deborah bows back. It takes some time. She kneels, which is a whole event, and offers you her back. You ride a chicken through the forest of egg at 40 miles an hour, and for 11 glorious minutes, you are the greatest ninja who has ever lived. You now carry Deborah, a chicken, and an ally and a legend, onto the great coop. Okay.
Chickens
The
have
great
knees.
coop, they do now. The great coop rises out of the trees like a cathedral built by something that had cathedrals described to it once. Inside sits the mother hen, 4 stories tall, ancient, and knitting. She does not look up. You'll be the one my ninjas keep asking directions off, she says. 200 years I've had them wandering. 200 years I've left at the big oak. If you politely ask the way out, turn to 261. If you attack the mother hen, turn to 270.
I'll be polite. Let's ask the way out.
She gives you directions. They take 4 minutes, involve a landmark that was demolished in the 14th century, and end with the word "you can't miss it," which is how you know you can. Somehow, you are led to a door marked hatchery, and the door is warm. You have to open this door, Adrian. It's the only choice.
Go on then. Let's open the warm hatchery door.
The hatchery is a single room the size of a village green, and the floor of it is a frying pan. 10,000 candles burn underneath it. The far wall is daylight, real green spelled correctly. Daylight. 40 meters away across shimmering black iron. Okay, it makes no sense whatsoever. Behind you, the door shuts. The iron begins very gently to tick. If you sprint for daylight, turn to 291. If you ride Deborah across, turn to 300.
Oh, yeah, ride Deborah across.
What the hell is this? Sunny side up. Deborah carries you across a heroic gallop, and you're almost at daylight when she catches sight of the mother hen in the doorway behind you and does what any chicken does under pressure. She lays. It is enormous. It is immediate and takes you off her back and directly into the pan. You land badly, in company, and the last thing you hear is a tremendous confidence of the sizzle. Here lies AD, who trusted a chicken and was ultimately correct in doing that, but died uncomfortably in a frying pan. And that's it. That's you. That's it. AD demands a retry or begin again. Afraid you lost. AD lost this evening. Sorry.
Oh, well, there you go.
So there you go. Now, I will position this HTML. I'll put it somewhere online so other people can play our amazing AI-created adventure game. For those that are offended by AI slop, don't play it. It is generated by AI, so it is stupid. But that's the fun of stupid AI, isn't it? So, and no, annoyingly, and I suppose I did create this on a very limited AI LLM. So I just want people to know that this wasn't Fable or some tree-burning, forest-drinking maniac LLM used to create that. It was actually an OpenClaw LLM, and it was on my own computer. So I'm, other than me powering my AI and utilizing my own language model, which was Olama in this case, this was not created by the giant cloud in the sky. Just for full clarity and transparency. I don't want people to think we're burning down rainforests for that nonsense.
That sentence you've just said is just as bonkers as anything you've just read out to me. It was a Llama LLM on my own PC. It won't Claude.
Right,
It won't.
No, so
I know what
Olama,
you mean.
So Olama is the language model.
It's all right. Don't have to explain.
So,
I get it. I understand. But it's just
no trees were harmed in the making of that stupid.
It's words I don't recognize in that context. That's what it was. Oh, okay. There you go.
What a crazy thing! What a crazy thing that was. So you tried to ride a giant chicken, but she was distracted by a giant chicken. Inevitable, that really. If you should have thought about that more.
Yeah.
You need to learn how to control the chickens in the games you play.
Absolutely.
You're no chicken controller.
I celebrated in the yoke. I think we do need to talk about the artwork of these books.
Okay.
Because I think part of the pleasure, part of the experience of these books, and I mentioned it in that Moral Panic stuff, is the artwork. The covers, the interior stuff.
Because the new books that they issue don't have that artwork on. So I'm going by what you say here.
But the original stuff, it was always an absolute joy to open up, to see a new book on the bookshelves. There's a reason why these lots stood out. They had it there because there was such great artwork. We Citadel Chaos we put to one side. But if you look at the artwork, I mean, that Forest of Doom cover, I'm just holding it up there to you. It's just so good. And it's Ian McCaig, right? So he's my favorite artist, along with Christos Achilleos, who did some stuff for these. But Ian McCaig, he did the covers for Forest of Doom, City of Thieves, Deathtrap Dungeon, Island of the Lizard King, and the interior illustrations for some of them as well, Deathtrap Dungeon especially. That image of Throm in Deathtrap Dungeon, where he stood there with the light coming through the sort of ceiling stuff, and he stood there with the thing. The image of that dwarf on his throne, the use of shadow and sort of space and the way the light's coming in, and City of Thieves is just equally as good. Sort of the artwork in these books is these are mini pieces, works of incredible art. And just today as well, I found it on Amazon and I bought it. I should have put, but I wanted it for tonight. There's a book called Magic Realms, which I've just had delivered. And it's a book about the artwork of the Fighting Fantasy books. I didn't even know it existed. And it came out in 2024. And I've had a quick look through it. It's astonishing. It's incredible. And it's some of the new stuff. It's a lot of the old stuff. And it just makes me realize sort of thing that the people who, I think you say something about the structure of the books, but one of the strengths of these experiences was every few pages getting a full page illustration of what you were seeing opposite what you were doing. And also as well, those little mini sort of break sort of drawings, the ones in City of Thieves, you got the dragon and the sort of the skull looking over his shoulder with his scythe. It's so good. And McCaig, just to sort of praise, born in Santa Monica, California. I mean, the guy's no slouch. These are the kind of people that they had working for them. Attended Glasgow School of Art, returned to California to work at Corti Films, where he contributed to Sesame Street cartoons, 1983 animated film Twice Upon a Time, returned to the UK, began a career as a freelance illustrator, included the cover for Jethro Tull's The Broadsword and the Beast, did the Games Workshop logo, cover interior illustrations for Ian Livingstone's Fighting Fantasy books. In 1990, he returned to California to work for Industrial Light and Magic, and later for Lucasfilm. And McCaig is best known for designing the Star Wars characters Padme and Darth Maul. I mean,
you can sort of tell, can't you?
And has contributed key designs to the films, the franchise. Russ Nicholson contributed to early fantasy game-related titles, such as what he did the Wall of Fire Top Mountain interior stuff, first the illustrated series. He did loads of them. Ian Miller, he did the cover for House of Hell, which I absolutely love. The detail in that cover, that original cover of House of Hell, the sort of evil figure at the front and the sort of trees and the evil house in the background. It's incredible stuff. Peter Andrew Jones, classic artist. He did a load of the early ones. The Talisman of Death, Starship Traveler, Walk, Fire Top Mountain. I think you can't, there's an entire podcast to be done around them. And I think, I'm sure there is somewhere out there, and people who know art better than I do could tell you why these things are so good. But the strength of these books was not just predicated on the writing and the story and the fact that you were the hero. They were also predicated on the incredible supporting artwork that really brought them to life.
Yeah.
In a way that those other books, the other books that we played, that we saw, those other 20 books, just weren't as good. And I think part of that, the production value to these, just off the chart. And I just wanted to have a sort of section where I said, God bless those bloody artists, because they were just, it was looking at them, playing them, just made them sort of, took them to a next level and aided your imagination to really sort of see these scenes and the people and the characters in it. I loved them. Love it. Still do.
What surprised me about the reissues of them, that they don't have any of the original covers. They have like these just little mini versions. I don't get that.
I don't like some. I think some of them are okay. But I don't know. Mate, it's probably just a nostalgia of me, but I just like those originals. Not all of them.
No,
I think
there must be a reason why. I'm guessing maybe it's to do with the cost. I mean, to give you an idea, I got the House of Hell reissue book. It was less than £6 delivered.
Okay, that's cheap.
And I got the House of Hell for $5.95. I got Deathtrap Dungeon for about £5. Those are new, obviously from Amazon. So but I'm guessing that when you buy them, you're paying less because you're not getting the covers and you're not getting they've got covers that are all aligned. They look a bit like the BioShock styling, actually. So they've got that kind of like. I'll hold it up so you can see. So,
right, yeah. Who made them? Are they the Wizard ones or?
I'll have a look. Actually, so it's got like more of a full version of the cover, but this was released by Scholastic.
Oh, they're the Scholastic ones. Okay.
2017. These were produced.
Right. Okay.
Interesting, isn't it? That. But yeah, I'm looking at the ones you've posted in our little show note things. You can't argue with the quality of the covers on them. I mean, they're amazing. That the Warlock of Fire Top Mountain aside, that one for House of Hell is brilliant. I love that. I like that kind of style. City of Thieves is ace. That's such a great cover. I remember that one. And I saw it. I'm like, oh my God, I remember it so well. And me being the typography nut that I am, I'm just getting a bit of a giddy on about the different typefaces on them as well. They're just beautiful. Really nice choices. Now, why didn't they choose some of that for the games that we saw, the video games, and choose? They could leaf out of these guys' books. Literally, when they were doing some of the artwork, you can see Ollie Frey definitely influenced wasn't he, by some of these for the Zap covers? Some of them, clearly.
Quite possibly, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Oh,
they were just so good.
Versa,
They're just
they are really good.
Just so distinctive on the shelves when you saw them. It's like,
I love that. I love that Starship Traveler cover. I think it's fabulous. I love stuff like that, though. So.
Yeah, Peter Andrew Jones. Yeah, Padge.
Yeah, really cool, that one. Yeah. Really cool.
And John Blanche, just a shout out to John Blanche, Ian Miller as well. He did the thing. John Blanche did the illustrations for and the front covers for all the sorcery books. So that's the thing about the sorcery books. They have a real consistency of tone and theme because he did all 4 of them. And so they all kind of have this kind of. He has a very strange style of illustration. It's kind of almost sort of scruffy like. I don't know how to describe it, but he's page. And then don't forget as well in things like Titan. I'll hold up. That's John Blanche. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Yeah, beautiful.
The interior.
That's amazing looking.
It's just great.
Love it.
And so all this stuff in there and everything sort of illustrated in there. And I remember Out of the Pit, the monster book had these full color illustrations, these massive full color paintings in the middle of it by McCaig and Achilleos. Just incredible. And the title page, the Titan, the big dragon coming in I just love them. They're just great fantasy artwork from the 80s. Brilliant.
I think they are. And one thing I'd say about the artwork in them is much better than the artwork in the Mark Smith and the Jamie Thompson Assassins and the Ninja books. I felt the artwork in them was pretty naff, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
it's not even the same league as they are in any of those Jackson and Livingstone books that I read.
Yeah, Deathtrap Dungeon is great. I mean, I'll find the one that in like
it's
City of Thieves. Look at that. It's just brilliant.
Yeah, really cool.
Isn't it when you meet Nicodemus, he's just all screaming at you. You can tell that's the guy who did the Jethro Tull cover.
Yeah, just a bit.
Yeah, just incredible
Real
use
talent.
of shadow and just all, and they're all black and white, just one color illustration. Anyway, I had to go off on that tangent because I need to talk about that.
No. I'm just saying. I think we've been talking now for probably longer than any of these books would take you to. You've been talking now for longer. Any of you'll be alive in any of these books initially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So the thing I wanted to top up with was the best-selling books weren't something that was tracked very easily in and around that time, although they did have lists. They're just not something that's lasted the longevity of all the years. So there's no official order you can ascertain. However, the 10 of the best-selling and most successful adventure game books in the UK in order, and I'll do it 10 to 1. So in 10 was the Shamutanti Hills by Steve Jackson in 1983. Number 9, Island of the Living King, Island of the Lizard King, Ian Livingstone, 1984. Starship Traveller in at number 8 by Steve Jackson. It's number 7 was City of Thieves by Ian Livingstone. Number 6, Fire on the Water by Joe Deaver. Not heard of that one, one of the Lone Wolf books. Number 5 was Flight from the Dark, another Joe Deaver book, another Lone Wolf one. Number 4, Forest of Doom, Ian Livingstone. Number 3, The Citadel of Chaos by Steve Jackson. Number 2, Deathtrap Dungeon, Ian Livingstone. And number 1, perhaps not surprisingly, is The Warlock of Firetop Mountain by both Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone back in 1982. So the book that started it all off, perhaps unsurprisingly to some extent, is one of the best-selling, possibly the best-selling and most successful adventure game books. Now, that list is different to the fan favourite choices. So the fan favourite choices, in reverse order, Starship Traveller in the last one, which was 3 stars. Island of the Lizard King, 3.5 stars. Fire on the Water was 4. Citadel of Chaos at 4. The Shamutanti Hills at 4.5. Flight from the Dark, which was one of the Joe Deaver ones, that's 5 stars. Forest of Doom, 5 stars. City of Thieves, 5 stars. The Warlock of Firetop Mountain is 5 stars, but it's the second best fan favourite. Number 1 fan favourite is Deathtrap Dungeon. So interesting that there's a little bit of a twist at the top of the fan favourites versus the what is arguably the best-selling ones, isn't it? But all of them are available for what is essentially nowadays less than the price probably of a coffee. And you're going to get a lot out of this. You know what I'd say to people? Do you know what? Just abandon your latest version of whatever Dan Brown book you've just bought, because you'll have read that by the time you've got from Newark to Peterborough, I'd have thought. They're easy to read type with no big words, aren't they? Just, relive a little bit of a fun life from your teens. Pick yourself up one of these books, of which you can get most of them on Amazon for either next to nothing or basically nothing. I mean, some of these, if you're buying them used, and please, by the way, if you're going to buy used books, maybe go to a bookshop or a secondhand bookshop. Don't necessarily do it the Amazon way unless you have to, but do go into some of the secondhand bookshops or the charity shops. They are a little bit, but they are out there. But I'm just saying that, if there is an option for you to find one of these in a place where it's going to actually get money to real charity, then do that. Let's not line Jeff Bezos' pockets any more than we have to, really, because he's already got enough money. And I'm not being mean to him. He's got loads of money. He's got so much money, he just goes on space journeys. So, but get yourself one of the books, one of the early ones. And if you're going to go for ones, I would probably suggest the ones that we've actually read through today. Maybe not the Ninja ones, but maybe definitely the Steve Jackson one that we've talked about, the House of Hell. Maybe the Deathtrap Dungeon or City of Thieves, or any one of those early ones, Walk of Fight Up Mountain even. Get one, and if you've got any commuting you're going to be doing on a train or something like that, play it, because they are quite good fun, and it's different to what people do nowadays. You could probably go and play all these things online if you really want nowadays. Of course you can. I've created one in what took 2 minutes with an AI, so it can be done easily, albeit stupidly, but don't let that be the experience of them. Go and play some of the originals, because they were pretty damn cool, and they still are in their own little way. And I had a lot of fun going back to these, and I thought I didn't quite know what I was going to feel like going back to some of them. But I'm glad I played House of Hell, and I'm glad I played Deathtrap Dungeon, because I really had fun with those two. Assassin less so, and the new one, Blood of the Zombies, felt a bit of a misfire, but you can't beat the classics, can you? Really good fun. Did you find that as well? Did you enjoy going back to them after all this time?
Yeah, I read them every now and again anyway, sort of thing. I was going to ask you, I don't know if you've got enough of a familiarity with them. Like, I clearly I've got more of a familiarity than you have, and that's, guys, you played them a lot more back then. But could you give the top 3 of your favourites? If you can.
It's quite tricky. I think...
But don't worry.
I would... No, it's not that. I don't know that I'd played them enough to be able to really give you a proper steer. All I could say to you is, at the time, I enjoyed the ninja ones, but because I think it was more about the ninja fighting and ninja stuff. And I'd become a bit obsessed with ninjas. I don't know why. I think everyone did for a bit, but I just got quite obsessed with ninjas for a while. But I haven't played enough of them with enough memory to go back but the ones I remember, but as I've seen the covers and they've jogged my memory, the ones I remember are City of Thieves, I remember from the cover that you've put in there, and House of Hell, of course. And I played that one, and those are the ones. So I couldn't recommend the 3 because you're way more knowledgeable. But out the ones I've played, House of Hell I played, and I really enjoyed that, and it's a good premise. And I remember City of Thieves being quite good, but I'm a bit rubbisher than that. But you probably got better ones to recommend than me.
So if I had to say my 3 favourites, there's the 3rd book in the Sorcery series, which is the 7 Serpents, which is great. So basically you get through the Shamatan Hills, you get through the Cowrie City Porter Traps, and you get into the 3rd one. And essentially what it is, you've got to get across this big sort of this massive plain, a huge sort of expansive territory to get to the king, who's basically the evil king has stolen the crown of kings, and that's what you're after. Basically, it's this big quest to get the crown of kings back from the bad guy. And he doesn't know you're coming, but he's got 7 of his serpents. He's got these 7 different serpents who are all represented by fire, water, earth. They're all different, and they're basically heading across the plain to get the news to him that you're on your way. So your task is to track all 7 of them down across this thing. Just this big kind of chase book. It works brilliantly, and it works really well. And some of the encounters are great. And it's just a really good has a really good pace to it as you sort of legging it across trying to find these 7 serpents. It's a different kind of book. You don't normally get this kind of tracking down something, sort of running away in these kind of things. And it's because it's part of the middle. Obviously, you probably need to read the first 2 first, and read all the sorcery ones because they're great. So if you take them as a whole, they're brilliant. But that 7 Serpents one I always liked. Creature of Havoc, which was 24, Steve Jackson's last one, was so very, very different. So really, really, really different. As I said, you played a monster, and you've been turned into a monster. You were a human, but you got turned into a monster, and you sort of wake up not knowing where the hell you are. And you have all these monster urges. Like I said, the first thing you do, you try and there's this dwarf, and this dwarf's petrified of you. He's cowering, and you gives you the option. I think if I remember rightly, it gives you the option to free him, and you go, it's okay, I'll choose that, but you don't. You kill him and eat him because you're a monster. It's because that's your urge. But as you go through it, people are talking, and it's all written in gibberish. But at one point, you find the key to unlock it. It's all in code, and you can unlock it. So you have to you start to understand what people are saying and what they're talking about you. You can go back to the beginning and play it again. If you know the code, you can understand what people are saying. It's very, very clever. And I like what they started to do in the later books as well. We didn't really talk about this because the early books, they don't do it very often, where you'll get something that say you find a dagger and it has the number 77 on it. And then at some point in the adventure, you'll go, do you have the dagger of so and so? If so, turn to the paragraph with the number on it. You can't cheat because you don't know the number. It don't give you that. A lot of them did that, and I think this one did it. So I really like that. So those two, and I think it's probably another classic one, but it's a toss up between City of Thieves and Forest of Doom. I think both sort of classic single location ones, which are they're just classics, and they just have a soft spot in my heart. But I did enjoy going through City of Thieves again, and I'll probably play through Forest of Doom again as well. But I think those would be my recommendations.
Do the just as a question for you, does the Lovecraftian influence in some of these appeal to you? Because I know you're a big Lovecraft fan. Is that because there's obviously some of that in there, isn't there?
There is in some of it. I mean, I can't pretend to be a long-standing Lovecraftian fan. I've only got into it over the last few years. I never read it back in the day or everything. I watched like stuff like From Beyond and stuff, and I knew of Lovecraft, but I never knew what Lovecraft was until recently. And I think if I went back through them, I'd probably see a lot more of it in there. Because I reckon this Lovecraft just influences all over the place and sort of weird.
Oh yeah.
And I think some of them more than others. And I think there's some of the weirder ones, the later on ones, probably things like Phantoms of Fear, I reckon might be Slaves of the Abyss, Portal of Evil, Fangs of Dead of Night. I think there's some weird stuff, Black Vein Prophecy. I don't know. So I bet if I read some of them later on, I'd be like, oh, this is quite Lovecraftian. So I can't remember enough. And especially those later ones, the ones that were coming in like the late 80s, where I wasn't reading so many of them by that point. So. But House of Hell has some elements to it, I suppose. But yeah. I like these, just before I run out, these little sort of facts. I can't imagine working the way Livingstone did. So these facts you put here, they worked opposite ways around. Livingstone wrote 1 to 400 on a sheet of paper and crossed numbers off as he branched, reserving every 10th for an illustration. No, I can't understand how Jackson wrote. Jackson wrote in logical sequence using letters and indexes, then renumbered the whole lot at the end. That sounds madness.
Yeah, that was just his way. Imagine what his cupboards were like.
I don't know. The way we did the one we wrote, we basically had this big, thick book, and we just put 1 to 400, like with a few lines to write each paragraph on as just sort of placeholder text before we typed it up. And so we had a number, we had like 1 to 400 written at the back, and we just crossed them off and then went that way. That's the way we did it. They built in anti-cheat traps. That's what it said. Livingston would have a character tell you he was 58 years old and later ask how old he was, make you turn to that number. Yeah, that happened later on. Yeah. What else was there? Yeah, some co-writing Warlock barely happened. The Jackson said to start discussing it, someone's just a game of snooker and the evening was gone.
Because they still meet pretty regularly. Up until fairly really recently, maybe they still do. Siri and Livingstone and a few other people still met up to play Dungeons and Dragons on a regular basis.
That's cool. And I didn't know the number 400 was an accident, that they finished on 399, so they wrote one extra meaningless paragraph to round it up. You can't end 399, could you? That'd be stupid.
I wonder which paragraph it was.
But I bet it's somewhere in Warlock of Firetop Mountain where it's like, it's a dead end.
You found an egg. Well done.
Yeah, probably.
Do you pocket the egg or go to the egg? Either way, go to 32.
Go to 32 indeed. I think that's about it. I think we've done it great. I think we've looked in a meaningful way, in a good way, at the Fighting Fantasy series. Meaning to do it for a while. We've talked about it for ages.
We have
sort of suggested and mooted it about. We'd never quite sort of figured out what we wanted to do, but we had the chance now. Quite enjoyed that.
I mean, there's loads written on the web. But like I said, there's an entire wing of the web devoted to this stuff. Whether it's interviews with all the key fighting fantasy writers and everything else, there's YouTube videos, there's documentaries about them as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff all about this. I'll post as many of the links that I've found into the show notes for you to go, and if you're into this and you really want to deep dive some of that, there's a really amazing interview with in SFX. There's a really amazing interview with a lot of 30th, 40th anniversary stuff that's been fairly recent, actually. So there's loads of stuff like that. I'll post all of the links I've got to that in the show notes. There's also making ofs, history ofs, the life and death ofs, all that kind of stuff. I'll post all that in there. Plus any reference materials that I've found along our travels, I'll also post in the show notes. So it's, like I said, there's a lot, and there's quite an encyclopedia of stuff out there. I'll also post a link to that Consider the Consequences. I would recommend you go and read that because it's really interesting to do that. Also, of course, this fightingfantasy.com, which is an official site with all of the sort of, various tutor code books and things like that. So go and explore the world of fighting fantasy. That's what I'd suggest. And we will provide you with all the links we can. If you want to buy the books, like I've said, go and buy them from a bookshop, secondhand bookshop, preferably if you can find one. Alternatively, if you must, then I guess Amazon. But, like I said, there's explore options for books before, you do what I did, which was buy the cheapest option you can. However, I know I kind of regret doing that, really. But there you go. Anyway, there we are.
I wouldn't, as long as you're reading the originals. I don't think it really matters. It's the content that matters. Really.
Well, exactly. I need to get a copy, and if it led you on to buying a couple more, because you can buy the whole series now. They've all been mostly reprinted.
Those ones you've got, because they're reprints. Have they got the original interior illustrations? Yeah,
I think they've got all the original interiors. I'll show you one now, and you can tell me if it's a match to the kind of interiors that you'd have in the other book. So, for example, that's the headless man in this one.
No, they're very different.
Oh, that's a shame then. So they're different artists. So the art's still quite good in here. The art is still quite good, but obviously not as good as the original one. So, next.
Yeah, it's a different style,
strange thing. I guess I don't quite know what the deal is with that. But you can also get City of Thieves, Citadel of Chaos, Forest of Doom, House of Hell, The Port of Peril, Creature of Havoc, Deathtrap Dungeon, Appointment with Fear, Island of the Lizard King, Sorcery, the Shamut Hills, and the Gates of Death. And there's probably even more books now because that's there's more to come. So you can go and get them. But if you can track down the originals, which you'll be able to get secondhand, I don't doubt, off somewhere, get them. Go and get them. It might even be PDFs you can get nowadays. Digital world that we live in.
Well, yeah, there are. Because I didn't have a copy of Deathtrap, so I had to read PDFs because I thought I had copies. I went to work and I thought, I'll get those 2 because they're at work. And it's 2 I didn't have. I was like, I'm an idiot. I picked 2 I ain't got.
There you go.
But I've had them in the past. I don't know what's happened to them. Yeah, just lost over time. Anyway. That's cool. There we go. Fighting Fantasy. What a great thing it was. What a great, cool thing it was.
And still is. Go explore.
Yeah.
Go explore. Your adventure literally can start right now.
Indeed, it can. On that note, okay, so we've got to finish there. Otherwise, we'll be chatting about these for ages. And I got killed by a chicken. So, good times. Good times indeed. If you want to support us, you can still do. We're still cranking along. We've still got our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Zapped to the Past. You get the episodes early. You get the Patreon exclusive episode as well. We'll be recording that next week. And that's usually like 2 to 3 hours, of us chatting away about stuff, about all kinds of stuff we're sort of talking about. So it's going on in the world, world of games, world of sort of tech and all that kind of stuff, and films and movies and books. It's all chatted about. So, if you want to hear more of us, sign up, patreon.com/Zapped to the Past. It's still, it's cheap. In comparison to, the hours you get, I think it's cheap.
It is cheap.
You get more hours of entertainment from us for it all than you would from going to see a film at your local cinema, and that would be like £10 or whatever. So it's a lot cheaper. We've got Ko-fi as well, ko-fi/Zapped to the Past, and a shop, zappedtothethe.shop. So all those things are cool. Let us know any kind of feedback on these sort of new episodes. Do you like them? Are you enjoying them? Do you think they're cool? Do you not? Is there suggestions or maybe whatever? You can get in contact with us via the socials. I hate that term, but I'm going to say it because whatever. And there you go. I don't think I've got much more to say. If you're not a Patreon, then if you are a Patreon, you got another episode coming next week. If you're not a Patreon, it will be. Let me just look at the calendar. 2 weeks. 2 weeks time, I think. 7th of September. Yeah. So I think it'll be a couple of weeks before you get the next one, and that will be back with us doing Commodore 4s.
The exploration of the fun world of C64 games and their dying throes.
Yeah.
No, we haven't quite kicked that horse to death yet.
No, we'll be looking at World Championship Squash, All-American Basketball, International Tennis, and Suburban Commando.
Oh, God, no. Okay. It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's only once a month now. The pain has been quartered.
True, yeah. And I suppose, I've got some ideas for the next episode of the second after that. And we'll see where we head with that. We've got some ideas for that. I'll pitch him to AD, see where he lies with that. We've got some ideas. We won't reveal them right now, but we've got some ideas
we won't reveal them
coming up. But we've got some potential idees.
We always reveal it on the Patreon episode. So if you want to know before,
exactly.
Really.
You should have studied. You should have studied.
Absolutely. You should have studied. It really should. And on that tangential note, I think we'll say goodnight. It's been a long episode again, as ever. So, as ever, I have been Adrian Mills.
I have been Graham. I chose page 64, and it was very exciting to watch Adrian get killed riding a giant chicken, but by a chicken, which was kind of inevitable. And he was killed because the chicken he was on decided to stop and lay an egg, a very painful egg. And we can all learn from that. Raddings. Very long middle name I've got there.
Okay. And you've been listening to maybe Zapped to the Past or Turn to page 74, and you could have been listening to 64 Games of Yore. Who knows? That was, I think, a title I came up with or something back in the day. I think there was a few titles I came up with. And luckily, I chose the right one.
You didn't go with that. You did.
No,
you chose well.
I chose well, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Jan was pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. Helen and Saunders, they made it through. See, I do take notice of what you're on about.
You do?
Yeah, so if you're a Patreon, we'll see you next week. If you're not, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as all the other amazing things we like to talk about, inspired, of course, by our lifelong friendship and journeys through all those fun games, times, TV shows, films, music, and everything in between and beyond. We will, of course, return very soon with another episode to explore more games and other exciting stuff. Until then, if you want to listen to all the previous episodes of the podcast, you can. Just go to our website at zappedtothepast.com and you'll find them all there. Alternatively, you can also find us on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon, Google, all of them. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. We also have a Patreon, which gives you early access to ad-free episodes, instant access to our amazing Discord server, discounts on our zappedtothepast.shop merchandise, a shout-out, and even involvement in the odd episode or two, all for less than the price of a sandwich. Go to patreon.com/zappedtothepast and join in the fun at the C64 tier. We do always like to hear from our listeners, so if you'd like to communicate with us, you can contact us via the website at zappedtothepast.com, email us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com, or find us on all the usual social media platforms. And if you like what we're doing, you can like, share, and write reviews, because it really does help us out. Zapped to the Past is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and produced at the legendary Flaky Bits 2.0 studio. All opinions expressed in the podcast are those of the writers, and while we indeed love the Commodore 64 and everything about it, we are not affiliated with any particular Commodore 64 magazine or publication in any way. Stay safe, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.